can I see all the other chats that come in? That's the that's the thing I'm kind of curious about.
Hmm.
Okay. So let's see here. It doesn't look like we have anybody in. All right, looks like Facebook is working just
Oh,
fine, so that's cool.
check my
Yeah, check
YouTube.
YouTube really quick.
Yeah, we'll do. Let's have a look, shall we? Oh, yes.
Yeah, check YouTube really quick.
With a delay, but it's on.
Delay is what's gonna happen, so that is totally
Hmm.
fine.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. I was kind of, not worried about that in the slightest, but the fact that I've got it here, it's all good.
Cool. Looks like we got one person watching now. Probably is me on Facebook. Um,
Let's have a look. Let's see. Yeah.
all right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of keep an eye on some of the different chat streams that we got.
Okay.
So you watch YouTube to make sure that we're talking with anybody
Yeah.
there,
No problem there at all.
and then I am sitting on a Facebook stream.
Cool. Right. Share that to Facebook now. Oh, why do you crap out me? What are you doing? There we are. Facebook. There we go.
Oh shoot!
What's that?
How are you doing that? That is interesting. So did you just type? Oh, so I'm curious, Bobby. Did you just type "Hello everyone, welcome"? Release is here.
I
Uh,
did.
oh, that's you, Angie. Okay,
I was going to
there.
say, I'm like, that's
It's like
some wicked
trying
sorcery
to
if I
figure,
did
yeah, it's like I'm trying to figure out where it's all coming from to make sure that
that.
I'm understanding it right. Oh wait, no, that is on the far right. There we go. Thank you. Now I see what you guys were saying. Okay. All right, we'll give it just a couple more minutes.
Sounds good.
But yeah, that's it's kind of funny actually. Might as well just start talking a little bit about things anyway.
Yeah, do it.
Um, all right. I'm curious. So, did you ever think that when you're like, okay, you wanted to write an album,
Hmm.
uh, how did you think it was gonna go, and how was it different from what how we ended up working on the album together? Like, kind of what were some of your like expectations that may have been a little bit different?
Well, it's funny because, so, I mean, I'm going to go back a little bit further. So when I actually first started playing guitar, I was with a group of friends. I know I was probably about 16, 17 at the time, and randomly, like, obviously we were all metalheads, so we went to like shows and all that sort of stuff. And a few of us, so my friend or myself, my friend Ash and Danny, were like, should we go get a guitar? I was like, well, yeah, but aren't they expensive? And then so we were like, right, okay, well, let's just go get one anyway. And then my friend Sarah actually was like, right, I've got a friend who can hook you up. I was like, great, okay. And she got me like this really basic Fender copy from China or something. It was beat. Literally, it was the worst pile of stuff ever, but it did what it needed. And I was like, okay, brilliant. I can learn on it. Wicked. So then after, a year goes by. I'm like, right, okay, I can upgrade my guitar finally. And then that's when I really finally actually started taking lessons to actually like properly start developing my skills as a guitar player. And it was really like with the couple of years I was with him that I was like, right, do you know what? I want to write, some wicked music. And I think the journey kind of started from there with having that vision of wanting to be able to, write something that I can say, I was a part of it, and I want to show it to the world. And that's that's to me is where it kind of started. And I thought it was going to be really easy. Like I thought it was going to be like, yeah, I'm going to write a few chords, some bass lines, be like, yeah, sweet. Yeah. Then I started listening to other people, like bigger bands like Dream Theater, Trivium, and
Yeah.
that, and I listened to it. I was like, ah, this is going to be more problematic than I thought. But I was like, no, I'm going to keep going with it. And yeah, so I just kept writing. I was like, right, I'm going to make an album. And I still had that thought. I was like, it's just going to go. It's going to go. But you know, a lot of the time I found was actually because of my ego. So there is a bit of well, I say it's a bit of a story. I mean, we can probably get into this a little bit later, but there's a story with Gear Gods, the YouTube channel. They did a contest quite a long time ago, and I was part of it. Um, and actually, it was because of that I nearly lost. I nearly stopped playing because of it. And it was because of my ego.
I actually remember that story. No, that it is a really good one. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, so now that we got a few people in here, looks like we've got Dream, Mr. Smiley Face in one chat, and we got a few others in a few other places. So just so that way everyone is aware, we've got multiple streams going out to multiple places, multiple chats. We're new to this, so if we miss some of your chats or whatnot, apologies. We'll do what we can. Um, but um, but yeah. So once again, this is the live stream of When Worlds Collide with myself, Matt Glass, and Robert Gregory. And yeah, so what we're gonna do today is we're just gonna be going through all the songs on the album, just basically from front to back, and talking about them as we go. So if anyone does, like in particular, like our band lab friends trying to jump in, asking about, to listen to something on someone else's profile, it will be pretty much impossible to listen to that because all of our audio is coming from inside the stream. So just a couple of things to let everybody know. But all right, so now starting right off at the beginning. So, Bobby, I have to say this: the first time you
Mhm.
sent me the first song, "How Your
Mhm.
Sins Are Made," first off, metal as hell title. "How Your Sins Invade," like it has just got that vibe to it. I when I first heard it, it was hilarious because it actually reminded me of a long time ago where I did a cover of
Mhm.
the Breaking Benjamin Halo 2
Yeah.
song.
Mhm.
And so when I first heard that choir that you put in, I was like, holy crap, like I am suddenly brought back to Halo 2 days, and it was awesome. So how did you get started on that song?
So with that one, so this is so DJ Tatius on BandLab quite a little while ago did a little jingle contest, and when I caught wind of it on the feed, I was like, oh, I want to write something for it. So I was like, right, okay, what do I write? So I just did what I would normally do. I just basically noodled the hell out of the guitar. I just like, oh, let's just figure it out. And what I think it was about after an hour, I actually came up with the heavy distorted part at the end. So I had that because he said it was 20 seconds that it needed to be, and no longer because otherwise he needs to worry about the tail. So I was like, fine. So long story short, I came up with that little heavy bit, and then originally that's what it started with, and then it wasn't long after that I thought, why not have this as a title track or something of the
Hmm.
sort? So that's when I added all like the choirs, the synths, and everything that led up to it, and I just literally played around with it. I was like, I want to kind of like give it a nice slow start,
Hmm.
to really introduce what's going to happen, and then suddenly just get a belter in the air. So that's kind of how I sort of came up with eventually with the whole minute track of How Your Sins Invade. And I mean, I remember just starting off with when I actually came to the beginning part, I just started with the choirs. Started with that. I was like, right, okay, cool. Then I was like, okay, how do we make it different? Because obviously each part's kind of got to be different, but at the same time, it's got to lead on to the end goal. So that that's kind of how it really went about. And then as for the title, I just kind of went, that'll do. I honestly, how I just think of titles, I just pick random words. Think, does that sound cool? Yeah, let's just try it in and just see what happens.
Let's just throw it in and see what happens. Well, you know
Yeah,
what? Let's go ahead
absolutely.
and kick off and listen to the title track, and so that way you guys can hear some of that Halo vibe that I first heard when he first sent it over to me. So here is how your sins invade.
I
So
think I
yeah,
actually
clearly you can hear like that like the big epic choir vibe with that huge distorted guitar. Like I love it.
I nearly gave myself whiplash just then. I was like banging out in the background. I was like, oh, that's gonna hurt in the morning.
Oh man, but yeah, that was it was a song that when I first heard it, I was like actually like I think that was the one I did the least amount of work on because kind of
Mm-hmm.
how I've always how our collaboration has always worked is like you start off the songs with the basic
Mm-hmm.
structure and most of the instrumentation done, and then kind of what I do is I maybe tweak the arrangement slightly,
Mm-hmm.
add some production little like special shiny things for
Yeah,
lack of a better
absolutely.
phrase.
Nothing wrong with that.
And that was a song I remember listening like because it was arranged so well. I was like, shoot, like I really don't have much to do on this. Like, really,
Mm.
it's just like like that one swell was the one real thing that I added, which is kind of make that like screechy sort of like
Yeah, yeah.
digital thing or whatever. Because I love crap like that. Like one of my big influences is
Oh,
Cell Dweller. Have you ever heard of him, Bobby?
who?
Cell Dweller.
There's a chance I have. That I
It's
probably would have somewhere down the line.
Yeah, it's a really small artist. So like
Mm-hmm.
he only gets like about 1,000, not 1,000, excuse me, like 1 million plays on Spotify, which I know that sounds hilarious to say. Like, but he's not
Mm-hmm.
mainstream. What he
Mm-hmm.
does is he's basically a hyper multi instrumentalist. So he plays drums,
Okay.
sings, screams, does full sound design. So like starting from a sine wave to everything and mixing and audio editing. He's like an absolute monster of a musician. And what he
Wow.
does is he does this like really wonderful blend of hyper electronic and synth stuff
Mm-hmm.
and like dubstep mixed with like some real like rock and metal. It's incredible stuff. Check it out at some point because
Yeah.
that's where like a lot of those kinds of things in like what I do creatively, that's where a lot of it comes from.
See, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and for what the stuff I've heard you do, and actually, like, funny you mentioned that, like, as you were just describing that, that actually reminds me of Mick Gordon, the
Mick Gordon,
guy
I've never heard of
who,
him.
so have, he was the sound designer for the Doom 2016 game from Bethesda. And
Oh,
Doom Eternal, he wrote all the music for it, honestly, like, and the way you were describing Cell Dweller was, it literally made me think of um Mick Gordon straight away. That was my first instant link. So I thought, and I fucking love Mick Gordon, like, for what he's done, especially with some of the track like BFG Division and Rip and Tear. Holy flipping hell, like, that is some incredible stuff. Definitely, like, I think you might actually like what he does.
no, for sure. Actually, now I'm starting to wonder, did Mick Gordon also do one of the it's not Half-Life. I'm thinking no Far Cry. Did he do some of the Far Cry games?
I think he did. Yeah, like I
Yep, then I
think.
do know who that guy is because I remember
Yeah.
one of my audio engineering buddies. This guy is like really stinking good.
Hmm.
He's like this to kind of give you an idea of the level of this dude is that he mixed Nine Inch Nails at Red Rocks Stadium in
Oh wow.
so yeah like
Okay.
huge and so he was so when we were sharing music we were working a show site together. He was like, oh dude, you need to check this guy out, and he showed
Mm.
like and it's basically Mick, if I understand correctly, showing his process and like with video how he created some of like the score for Far Cry, and it was just like,
Mhm.
holy cow, this guy's an absolute monster of a musician.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, he actually also did a documentary as well on again on how he came up with the score for Doom. And what was actually funny in that documentary was at the very beginning, the developers at Bethesda and ID, I think ID Software as well, they actually said no guitars at the very beginning. And then about halfway through the project, they were like, actually, yeah, guitars, I need it. We need more brutality. And yeah, and that's when he came up with the idea of adding like a chainsaw effect alongside with the guitars as well, and just to really oomph it up a lot. And it was just incredible, like hearing it. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Nah, it's amazing how songs can grow and change over time, which actually kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of this next one. Nothing. So nothing's left for you. This
Hmm.
was one. I know we. This one for me vocally was super difficult. Is because the I don't know why, but like some choruses I connect with, and I'm like instantly can write something
Yeah.
or several things.
Hmm.
But this song, for some reason, it kind of perturbed me for a while. Like I couldn't quite get something that I was happy with, so that's why it actually ended up with kind of
Really?
like the first line, second line, kind of very call and responsey with two different vocal
Mhm.
sounds.
Okay.
And that's that's actually why I ended up with because like the types of moves that I wanted to do with that chorus, I was having trouble figuring out. So that's actually what the chorus ended up being was basically me problem solving my own writing and like constantly
Right.
reworking it. Yeah,
Okay.
but let me see here. Oh, look, sounds so we may have a stream playing in the background. Okay. Yeah, just mute the audio on the stream that you're listening to. Because yeah, what we're doing at the same time is we're trying to monitor the streams as well to make sure that everyone's getting interacted and
Mm.
answered and all that.
There we go. That should do it now.
All right, all right. So cool. All right. One thing I love about this song is that lead synth line. So was that lead synth line? Was that like one of the first things that you came up with this song, or was that something that kind of got added later on?
I think, if I remember correctly, this got added later on. So I think with this one, I'm trying to think how I even got to the like got with this one. I think I was working with someone, and was I working with someone? No, I wasn't. I just randomly came up with it. I think what I came up with was it was the chorus that I actually came up with first, and I was like, right, okay, what can I do with this? And I was like, oh, what I was really stuck for ideas for ages, and I was probably sitting on this chorus for about a good month and a half, maybe two, and I was like, right, okay, what can I do now? So then I was like, right, okay, let's just add a random synth line and let's just play some random notes and just see what happens. And that's when I finally got to the melody that I wanted. It's like I was just playing and playing and playing, and then I think it was the first like five, six, seven notes. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. The rest don't. Right, bugger them off. And then it was literally how that went. It's like, okay, right, what notes can I add next? And built it, and then finally got to the point where it was actually done. I was like, oh my god, yes, I can write the rest now.
That is awesome. All right, let's see. Listen to nothing. Nothing's left for you.
Mm-hmm. you having a
Yeah.
little German background there. I was like, I got to do it.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering. I was like, all right, let's uh, that was almost one thing I almost thought about, like, okay, wonder if I could figure out some way to like hook it up so that way we could get your guitar audio and like my vocal or something like that in the stream, but that it's a bit of a bit more technical.
I mean,
But yeah,
well,
I love that the very like uber classically like thirds like lead electric guitar on that song, because it like that's one of those things that we don't do a lot in this album. We don't have a
no.
lot of like super classic metal moves. So whenever they
Mhm.
come in, I'm just like, oh yeah, like
Oh,
that's
you know, just when you know it just hits the feels like, oh my god, this is awesome. It's like, yeah. Can you hear that?
I can.
Ah, so we do have guitar. Okay, I can do it from this way, so that's fine.
No, the so I'm curious. What was what other? I was curious. What questions do you have for me on that song, or kind of things that you were curious about?
Well, this is the funny thing. I mean, this one in particular was we were quite far into this whole particular project at this point anyway.
Hmm.
So really, at this point, I had no questions because after the amount of tracks that we'd done already, and decided on the fact that we were going to do this album, I at this point put my trust in you. But if I'm honest with you, I was like, do you know what? Just do what you want. Go for it, man. It's like whatever you do, it's gonna sound awesome either way. So I had complete and utter faith in you, and that showed. So I have to say hats off to you.
Well, and that was one of the things I always kept wondering. I was like, okay, am I, you know, because one of the things that I can be a bit forceful in my communication
Mhm.
style sometimes, and so one of the things that I was like, okay, like Bobby's being so nice about everything and just like letting me do whatever I want. So that's why I'd always be like, okay, you sure you're cool with this? Does this feel good? Does this sound
Yeah,
good? And that was always one of the things that because you were just so polite about everything, I wanted to make sure that, hey, we're in this together, and I'm not just
yeah.
like you know being some sort of diva writer or something like that.
No, no, no. Honestly, like the every time that you put something in, made an addition or anything like that, the wife would hear it as well, and we would both first of all listen to it, like, right, how does this sound? And we both, we'll both listen to it together. We'll look at it. Yeah, honestly, like it didn't take us many times to actually listen to just to what you've done and to go, any changes that we would have made, I would have already have told you about.
Hmm.
There was very little that I wanted changing. If I was really honest with you, there not really much needed changing at all, if not hardly anything.
Well, that's good because now the album's out, and so we're all kind of like locked into this. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's it. No, absolutely, it's there. It's there for the world to see now.
yeah, for sure. No, that was one of the things that I was like, oh, because I never remember the lyrics that I write. But well,
Oh, sorry.
some of them, like this one was one that was a little bit more abstract. Like I said, I kind of like struggled to get into it. But this one was it's
Mm,
an interesting song because it's all very focused around um, kind of some old experiences that I've had with Christianity and Jesus. Because I am a Christian, I do believe in
sure,
Jesus,
sure.
but it's
I
one of those
remember you
things
saying before.
you meet and you when you get really deep into those sorts of worlds, you start to realize that, wait a second, some of the things that people tell you aren't really all that real, and some of the people that are in leadership positions, it's purely for their own benefit, and that's what a lot of this is is when people are going to those places and those people looking to leaders to tell them what's good, to go for hope, and then it's
Hmm.
someone that is just kind of using them. That's really what this whole song is about, and that was why
Yeah.
that line, it's kind of weird because it's a little bit ambiguous. Most people wouldn't know what it's about, but it's a I gave it all and I never knew what it really cost. But it's like I gave everything to this belief system. I gave everything I had, did everything
Mm.
everyone told me to, bled for it, but it still wasn't enough to make it true. And
Hmm.
that's the thing, is like, even though you may have things in your life that are really important to you, um, it sometimes we can all get deceived by things that we think are going to fix us, things that we think are going to be what we need, and
Mm.
and sometimes. it doesn't matter how much you believe, it doesn't matter how much you do, it's just not right. And that was kind of what the overall lyrical message of this one. But now let's move right along to the first song we worked together on, Apocalypse, which
Oh
apparently is
yes,
my mom's favorite.
is it?
Yeah.
Oh God, Apocalypse. Oh my God, this was like what, a year ago now that I think we wrote this one.
Yeah.
And I think I remember because I remember showing you like the first segment of it. Like, I think I had like the first 20 seconds, I think it was, or I just came up with it off the cuff after you showed me like some other bits that you were working on and that. I was like, oh, and I thought, okay, well, let's try and match that. Let's just try, or, see what I can do. And then I came up with that. I was like, oh, well, I've got this. Have a listen, see what you think. So I was like, should
Yeah.
I work on it more?
No, and one of the things I wanted to ask you about this one is this one's a little bit more approachable, like a little bit because I describe this album to everyone as like this is pop metal, because
Mm-hmm.
we've got lots of so like it's pretty production, lots of synths involved, a lot of
Yeah.
singing, but there's still it's still metal. We got some breakdowns, some speed, blast beats, screaming, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
with this one, why this one feels way more like general like hard rock almost. So I was
Hmm.
kind of curious if that was something are there some like more softer bands that you listen to that are kind of in this vein?
I mean, the first band that would come to mind, like if I was gonna suggest any, would be Yellow Card. Yellow
Oh,
Card. I
really? I
had
didn't
a
know you listened to Yellow Card.
Yeah, I had a phase where I listened to them real constantly. An old friend of mine actually introduced me to them, and I was like, oh, I like this, and so I listened to. I'm trying to think which album it was. I don't know if it was their self-titled one or if they've got one at all.
Or
But it
Ocean's
was.
Avenue? I know that was like one of their big ones.
I think it was that one actually, and I just listened to it. I was like, it wasn't really, like it wasn't obviously what I would normally listen to, but it was just a really nice different contrast, and it just really took me by surprise that I was actually quite happy to just sit there and listen to it all day. Because they were just so much more different.
Hmm.
And another band actually would be Hands Like Houses. That's another one. I've got their album Dissonance on CD and obviously on Spotify and everything. And the track that I sort of picked up on the most was New Romantics, one of
Hmm.
like the stadium rock tracks. And it was the bit at the beginning where it sort of like comes in with this sort of like sparkly bell and in the background with this sort of like C sharp sort of like bass synth in the back, and then just coming in with the guitars, and then after all that, the bass kicked in, and it was just like this. Oh my god, yes! And I mean that's what hooked me on Hands Like Houses. But I found they're very similar to Yellow Card in some senses. Like, it's not all the tracks were like really sort of hitting there in your face, if you like. They were very. Some of them were quite subdued, and really felt. I think it just really felt awesome. So I was like, I like these guys too, and so I think that's where some of my softer touches I think comes from. Is coming from a
Hmm.
mix of those two, and I'd probably say more Hands Like Houses, if anything, but
Yeah.
definitely there were some Yellow Card ideas there, if you like.
Well, it's kind of funny you mentioned Yellow Card because that's actually like because you mentioned DJ Tatius earlier. Like that's like a
Yeah,
huge influence on him. He loves Yellow Card.
I remember
I got into
seeing
them a
that
little.
actually.
Yeah, I got into them a little bit. It's not like one of my main influences, but it's kind of funny you mentioned Hands Like Houses. I saw them live, and I was really not impressed with them at all. I was
Really?
Yeah, it was really because this was because it was interesting because I saw them with a whole bunch of other bands,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh man, like I was like, man, I feel like those guys like there's just not a lot there. But then I happened to go listen to them one of their records, and I was like,
Hmm.
holy cow, this is a whole different experience.
Yeah.
And that's one of those interesting phenomena is that there are definitely some bands out there that they put out great records, but they're
Hmm.
not as good live. Or
Yeah.
vice versa. They're really
Yeah.
great live, but they don't put out as great a records. Um,
Yes.
which is it's just always really interesting to see. And so it's always really fun when you finally find a band that can really do both well.
It's hard to do both. Like, I've not had any experience playing live or anything like that, but I can only imagine like having to do that at the same time as well as being able to write some really cool stuff. That takes a lot of skill to do both, and it's not an easy thing.
No, no, it definitely isn't. Well, all right, let's kick off Apocalypse.
Let's do it.
What we write, the consequence will always catch up to our acts. Failing to try weakens the mind. Inaction is the tactic of those who fall first. Why will go
Yeah, no, that is that one is a good song. It
It
is.
was. Oh, I do love that one. It's just like it's just really like this awesome energy. It's really upbeat, and I thought, yeah, I want that kind of thing.
Well, and honestly, that little tapping solo that you throw in at the end there, it's kind of one of those that people don't expect that to come out, and but it
Hmm.
fits so well with the whoa,
I thought it really did. Yeah.
and the thing was, like, when I was mixing this, I was like, I want both of those things loud. How do I do this? So you'll notice, like, if you're paying attention, is that when like you're on the first part of the like where the woes, so the woes come backwards just a little bit because they have lots of reverb on them, and I take the reverb out of the tapping solo, and so it comes forward a little bit so that we can really hear like all those like crazy notes that you're hitting, and then I pull it back and add more reverb and like lower it just a little bit so that way it's just a fun ride, like so that way that comes forward just for that moment, and like because I was like I need all of these things to hit nice and hard. So I was really happy with the way that one ended up.
Oh, honestly, no, absolutely, man. Like you've done a stellar job with it. And actually, that little tapping thing was one of the last things I put in because
Oh, really?
it was honestly, yeah, it was because I thought, right, it's the last chorus. How do I differentiate this? And I think I just remember I was just tapping away, and I just thought, well, actually, let's just put it in, just see what happens. Honestly, a lot of the way I write is I just wing it, and I think that's I have some kind of idea of how I want to like put stuff together, but a lot of the time is when I want to like fine tune it, I will wing it.
Mm.
And it's worked so far. It will fail me at some point, and then I'll just come back up again and just do it again.
Well, and that's one of the things about writing. That's why I tell everyone like rewrite your parts. Like don't just leave it alone. Is because that whole process of like just winging it. That's you brainstorming, coming up with lots of different ideas, and then like
Yeah.
trying them in. Like, all right, does this fit? Does this fit? It's almost like a puzzle piece. And so the thing that I like to do is where because I've done this for a long time I've done this professionally since I was 19. So that's now what 16 years.
Okay.
So because of that, I've played a lot of different genres. Now I've got to the point where I can, for the most part, like definitely not all the time, but for the most part,
Yeah.
I can kind of be like, this piece fits here, and be a little bit faster and be a little bit more cerebral in how I create versus just raw brainstorming. But like I said earlier, like nothing's left for you. That was a raw brainstorm because I was like, I'm not sold on any of these ideas. Let's just keep churning out ideas until the right one shows up.
Yeah, absolutely. And when the right one shows up because like what was it? It was actually writing it was the intro hook for Nothing's Left for You. Like I think I went through that probably about 20 times before I actually settled on that beginning bit. When I finally got it, I was like, I listened to it like 5 times and went, yep, that's it. That is going in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I must have changed that about 20 times before I'd settled on that one. It was frustrating as hell.
Yeah, because the way that I always describe that feeling is like you hear something in your head that you're like, wait, no, I know what should be there, but like
Yep.
you can't like you don't quite have the idea firmly enough that it's not like, oh yes, this is a a hammer part that starts on the 5 and then it rolls
Yep.
off to a 2. Like you can't quite, you don't have it that solid in your head, so that way
Yep.
you just have this frustration of like, I know it's not right yet. I'm really close, and oftentimes it's that work through where the best ideas come from.
Oh, definitely that, and it's like it's such an awesome feeling that once you get the part you want and
Yes.
it's how it's definitely what you think there as well. It's just like, yes, that will do. Thank you very much. I can move on to the next part.
Dude, I did a random little video clip on my BandLab profile, and it was basically showing everyone like, so when I say I rewrite my parts, I take it seriously, and it's basically I counted up 36 takes trying to get one small section, 4 bars right.
Yeah.
Now it was very difficult because like it's in 7/8, it's progressive metal, so it's like it is incredibly technically demanding. Still, this 36 takes just to get 4 bars, like, oh gosh.
But no, absolutely, and you know what? It was like I explained earlier. It's like when I get to a point where I'm happy with the structure and I'm happy with the flow of the music, I will go back again and I will listen to each individual track that I've done, that I personally played, and I will think to myself, like, right, does this work? Does this sound good? Are there any mess ups? And if one of those is ticked, I go again on that part alone, but I will keep going until I get it right. And sometimes find that every time I do that, part of it changes.
Yep.
And then every time it's like I try and nail that one part, and then I do something slightly different, but then I think, well, that just worked far better. So then now I'll start doing that, and then something else changes. It's like, oh my god, this is a never-ending cycle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely is. All right. So now
Oh,
tell me, how did you start Duality in Reality?
Duality in Reality. So I started this one for good couple of years ago. So I think so. I'm part of also the band Across the Kingdom in the UK. So it's me, my friend Simon, Jake, Josh, and Will. So obviously we're all in this band, and we were sort of like trying to brainstorm ideas. And obviously the way I like to sort of present ideas is come up with unfinished. Well, I say finished drafts, if you like.
That's a good way of
Um,
doing it, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Rather than sort of coming up with one little segment, I will sort of like think of a whole entire piece, and then I'll present it and then be like, do you want to take any? And then my thoughts are, do you want to take any part of it from it? Is it good as it is? If not, what needs to be changed and all that sort of stuff. So I presented it to them, and they were like, "Yeah, that sounds great. We know we can definitely work on it and stuff like that." And then nothing ever actually developed after that.
Mm.
So it was one of those that eventually it just sort of sat there, and then that's when I thought, okay, well let's just put it on BandLab and just see what happens from that. And then got a few people sort of worked on some ideas and some drafts and stuff, and they put them out and everything on sort of BandLab. It was like great, cool. But then nothing sort of really stuck because I'm also quite picky with how with how I want things to sound, and it just wasn't. It was hard to sort of like pick a good one,
Mm.
and then I thought, well, okay, if I can't really do so, so what am I going to do with it? It was just kind of sitting there, kind of collecting dust, if you like. But it was a fun one to write though, because I particularly love the riff at the heavy riff at the very beginning, when it sort of like comes in with the double kicks. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah, that is a solid ass riff.
I don't even know how I did it. I just sort of went, again, I just noodled and just went, yeah, okay, so we'll go like that. Yeah, and then there. But one of my other favourite parts that I magically came up with was the verse harmonies. It was like, I don't know how I do things. I just write and just play. Honestly, my sense of my music theory knowledge is really terrible. Like, it's basic enough that I can get by, but when it actually comes to like trying to explain the theory behind it, I can't do that because it's not there. But I just sort of go with feel on it, I guess. It's just like, and then I just kind of just did it was kind of like a harmony from like the actual main part of the verse, which was but it was kind of like the first part was, I just kind of just went, okay, well, what if I just harmonize those two? And then it just kind of went, yeah, I like this. And then, yeah, it just kind of went further and further. It was just brilliant. It was like, how did I even do it? And that's partly a lot of the times, like with all these tracks that we've started, is like, that's how a lot of them I've written. It's just, I've just wung it.
Well, your winging it definitely works. I'll say that. But I do have to acknowledge we got some lovely people over here on BandLab. Yasmin, Dr. Snave, and then also Jason Jacobs. Like we got several like of the metal folks here.
Oh,
So
get
it's good to see
on!
you guys.
Hey, what's up?
But all right, and so the one thing I'll say about duality and reality before we play it is that this
Mhm.
song, when I first heard it, I was like, oh man, these are some heavy riffs, these are some heavy drums. Like I was like, okay, shoot, dude. Like I like, all right, I'm normally not confident enough. Well, actually, screaming for me was a new thing for me vocally just 2 years, 2 or 3 years
Oh,
ago.
okay.
Yeah. And so also so that's why I never like led with it with like I
Mhm.
never made huge sections with lots of screaming because of that, because I
Sure,
didn't
sure.
quite have enough confidence in the sound, because I was also still experimenting how to make it sound production wise and mixing wise.
Mhm. Yep.
But when I heard this one, I was like, son of a bitch, like I have to, like, there is no option. Like Bobby just threw down something heavy. Like I need to respond in kind. And so I was really proud of how the vocals came out. It's kind of funny. But and they also the other thing is that the lyrics of this one, Duality and Reality, it purely came from, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, right? It was just raining, dumping, just so
Was
much
it?
water was coming down when I was working on this. And that's exactly why that first line kicks off, and then it eventually becomes duality and reality. I was like, oh yeah, that's
Mm.
right. That's one of the reasons why I love living where I live, is like there's so much water and rain that comes down, so everything's green and beautiful. And but
Right.
you need that chaos, you need that destruction, you need that to happen to, and so that's where the theme came from. So that is
Right.
duality and reality. Let's take a listen.
And now I know why.
Destruction will follow when
yeah, that one's a friggin' barn burner right there. Like,
Honestly, it was just so cool. Like, especially when you showed me like the draft of when you like the screens at the beginning, like just really like pumping it. I was like, oh my god! It was like for me, it's like one of those meme moments. Like, oh my god!
oh yeah, I haven't seen that meme in a while.
I know. But no, honestly, man, that was incredible, and it was like it really gave it the life it needed, and it was just like, oh my god, yes.
Okay, well, so first thing I want to acknowledge a couple people. My buddy John Watkins just came in on the Facebook. So, hey man, how's it going? And then Yasmin, I wanted to acknowledge that about the harsh vocals, because one of the because I mentioned just a little bit ago that I didn't like about 2 years ago I hadn't screamed at all, and also adding grit to your voice in an intentional fashion without hurting yourself is really difficult, and it's kind of but the cool thing is that once it basically the big thing is with the harsh vocals is that even with screaming or just adding grit, the big thing is that you should never feel pain ever. It should always be something that's like very weirdly relaxed. That's one of the funny things is that when I'm doing that, like, oh, I don't even know if I can do it right now. And like that thing, that is a really like unstable technique. It sounds like I'm absolutely thrashing my vocal cords, but I'm not. It's actually so easy and chill for me. But yeah, Yasmin, hit me up if you have questions on how to sing with some grit or whatnot, because I'm happy to teach you. It's not honestly that difficult. It's more of just getting your mind around it. But the last thing I'll say about duality and reality is that that chorus, it was really funny because it doesn't sound like a technically difficult chorus to sing, but
Mm.
it bounces between two sections of my register because like I actually have vocal damage, so there's a part of my
Oh,
voice that is
wow.
just unstable. It really
Oh,
is.
okay.
Yeah, and like and basically it's just from years and years of singing and singing to singing without warming up,
Hmm.
singing way too much, and also singing it with incorrect techniques.
Okay.
And so that was just one of the things is I was like I had to re-record and edit the absolute shit out of that vocals on the chorus. Like if you saw what the comping was like, it's like this, but that was exactly why. And I actually went to a friend of
Yeah.
mine, who's the best singer that I know. I was like, Karen, like what the hell is wrong with me? Like why am I
Mm.
having such a problem with this? And I even sent her the song. She's like, where's your break point? And I was like, right here. She's like, that's why. You're constantly hopping just right around the break point. And so you have to swap up your techniques. That's why. And I was like, okay,
Ah.
I know. I was like, and the thing is, like, I felt kind of stupid because I'm like, I know better than that. Like, I should know
Mm.
that. Like, I've done this for long enough, but sometimes you get in your own head a little bit too much. You get stuck and you think that you just forget the obvious, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I suppose it's when you're in that moment as well, like you kind of think, right, let's just go, I keep saying this all the time, but you go with it and just see what happens. And then I suppose you then kind of forget about what like the basic fundamental points. Like we all know them,
Yeah.
like for what we do. But when you're sort of wrapped up in that moment, you almost forget about them, like unconsciously. Like you don't even think about it, and it's until you actually like get to a point where you're like proper stuck. And then, as you said, like someone pointed out, there was like with the break point and everything. It's like, well, why didn't I not think? I should have thought about this already. But then, as you said, it's when you're in that moment, you subconsciously just randomly forget about these things, and it's hard to then kind of get back into it until either someone points them out to you, or you know, then you kind of just figure it out again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's Tony. Yeah, the whole Chris Lepe thing. Yeah, actually, the reason why I learned how to sing with grit and gravel and also scream was actually because it took was 4 or 5 vocal lessons from Lucas from Veil of Maya, and I didn't realize it. I was so stinking close with my techniques, and basically Lucas was just like, all right, you're close. Here, do these little tweaks here, and then I just took some time, and then I got it. He kind of revolutionized how I sing, which is so never be afraid to take lessons from professionals.
No, absolutely. It's like they know what they're doing. They've done it for a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
The
All
other
right,
one,
now
go on,
fading
go.
away.
Yes.
Yeah. Now this song obviously lyrically means a shit ton to me. But I remember hearing the first time you sent me this track, I was like, holy cow, this is really good. Like this, I have to bring my A game on because this is like one of the tracks on the album, which we
Yeah.
ended up realizing later on that there's actually a lot of really good tracks that we have. But this is like the first one that I was like, oh, okay, I need to take this seriously. So kind of tell us a little bit about how you started fading away.
So I started fading away with, um, I started with the intro. So that's the first thing that came to my mind was I actually came up with the piano melody at the very beginning. I just sort of just went to and then it was like okay, and then I sort of like right okay, how do I want this to go? And I sort of had this feel that I didn't want it to be super heavy, but I still wanted it to be points where it sort of really grabs you. But there was also points where I kind of want it to have this like really nice little journey. Um, so I kind of came. So what I did was I took obviously the piano part at the very beginning when I finally got it down. Um, the first thing I'll do is I actually will move the MIDI that I have for it, and I'll move it in different keys. And I'll think like, right, what one sticks out to me the most? And I was sort of going through them, and I was stuck between two. It was the one that it is now, and I think there was another one where it was two tones down. So I think it was going G sharp. I think we were going in the key off. That I was kind of really stuck between them two. Or at one point, I was actually stuck between the C sharp minor key as well. So technically, I had 3 points to kind of go with. Because I did at one point rewrite the whole thing in sort of like C sharp minor with my other guitar that I've got. Um, but once I eventually settled on the D minor key where it is now, I was like, right, okay, I want this to kind of really, catch people's attention. And it was actually one of those tracks that I'd written the first draft in 2 days, from start to finish.
Wow.
Drums, synths, guitars, the lot. Like obviously no vocals or anything, but yeah, the whole draft done in 2 days. I was really like, what the hell just happened? It was literally like life flashed before my eyes. I was like, that's the quickest I've ever written a song in my life. And I was just like, oh my god. Obviously the arrangement was completely different to what it is now. I think I had it was the middle part of the middle section where after the second verse, that was like far later, and then a couple of other sections were like further back, and at that time it didn't make sense to me. After I obviously listened to it and put it out on BandLab, I sort of listened to it and I get to a point and I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense to me. So I was like, right, bring it back, let's go over them again, rearranged it, and that's when eventually I was actually really happy with how it turned out. But yeah, no, the point that started it was that melody at the beginning. That was kind of like the driving force of it. And I kind of wanted to keep that sort of momentum on that melody going. So yeah, I just focused it around that. I wanted the verses to be kind of really sort of clean, sort of like really mellow and everything like that. And that's sort of why I never had the first part of it. I didn't put any guitars in. It was literally just like the drums, bass. Well, no, so there was no bass in the beginning. It was just like the synth bass line stuff. And then just got went for it from there. And then after that, everything just fell together. Again, it was just one of those. I was just super impressed with how I even thought about that in that sort of time span as well. But yeah, no, actually, I had a question for you on this one. Actually, was understanding that the subject that you chose for this was obviously this one. I think really hits home for a lot of people, because it's one of those that a lot of people will be going through this right now, or some point, maybe potentially somewhere down the line, or have seen it happen. And God forbid, I wish the best, for everyone that goes through it, because I only want them to sort of know that you're not struggling through it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would like to know is what sort of how did you come up with the idea of coming up with that subject in the for it? I guess, if that's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, honestly, that was that because I oftentimes I will write my melodies, not always, but I will oftentimes write my melodies and my rhythms first, even with vocals, and so I'll
Hmm.
figure out like what. So it's really funny. My demos sound absolutely hilarious. I'm just like, yeah, like that. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have to go through that process to figure out. Now, once I kind of figured out where at least the rough ideas, because I never
Hmm.
get them too nailed down, so that way in case the lyrics change, the number of beats and whatnot used. I was trying. I like I said, I really loved this song right at the get go. So then I was
Mm.
like, okay, I need a really good subject. What is a good subject? What am I thinking
Yeah.
about, feeling? What's something that connects? And then I was thinking about, my grandfather,
Hmm.
and all that's been going on with him, and because like that's something that like me and my family we talk about it probably at least once a week, and
Okay.
how he's doing, what's going on, how it's progressed,
Yeah.
and it's very emotional, and because when I say that my grandfather was a hero, like the way that the reason why I use that phrase in the bridge is
Hmm.
because he is the definition of the self-made man, like the
Mm.
work ethic that man has always had. So he worked in his family insurance agency, for
Hmm.
most hours.
Hmm.
Then built, a couple of houses by hand, and then would race cars, and then he would rebuild them from scratch, and then put them all back together, and then race cars for fun.
Oh.
And then also did all sorts of real estate investing, and because he was such a ferocious hard worker and such a self-made
Mm.
man, he basically took care of completely several chunks of the extended family just purely on his
Wow.
back, easily. And he just that's just what he did, and
Mm.
he's always been such a humongous support to everyone around him, that's why
Yeah.
it's like that's why I describe him that way, and that's why it's so hard to watch, is because one of the most capable human beings I have ever met
Yeah.
is now slowly not that person anymore. Just
Yeah.
hard to watch.
That must be like, I can't even begin to fathom like what that must be like. Like, I've personally not seen it as far as I know. I have spoken to people before that have seen it and what have you, and I just think, wow, But to have the strength to be able to do what you do, seeing all that, that's not, from what I understand, not an easy thing to do. So I can only say, I think your grandpa would be bloody proud of you, like, seriously.
Yeah, I thank you, and I appreciate that. Obviously, this isn't exactly his type of music, and honestly, he's a hyper private person, so
Hmm.
I haven't even shared with him that I wrote this. But also, his mind is not what it used to be, so I don't even
Yeah.
know what the reaction would be.
Hmm.
But anyway, like I said, super heavy song, really means a lot to me, and honestly, I really love, because I use art to process my feelings. I think way more than I feel, so that is
Hmm.
why Fading Away is as emotionally intense as it is. And here we go.
Let's do it.
Just like that, you're gone. But just sit and watch. I know I will be forgotten for your worst song. Just like that, you're gone. You are here right now. You're like a ghost fading down. Just fading, just fading, just fading in and out. Just fading, just fading, just fading in and out. Yeah, right. Yeah, everyone. Yeah, well done. Nothing's worse of a curse than to watch a hero fade. Just like that, you're gone. You are here right now. You're like a ghost fading down. Just fading, just fading, just fading in and out. Just fading, just fading, just fading in and out. Just like that, you're gone. You are here right now. You're like a ghost fading down. Just fading, you're just fading, just fading in and out. Just fading, just fading in and out.
Oh, and there we are. Oh my gosh! And your timing is
I
perfect.
literally, I was hearing it from downstairs. Like, I just said to the wife, like, song's about to finish. She's like, go, go, go. I was like, okay, run, run.
Timing was excellent.
Oh, it
Oh,
was
yeah.
phenomenal. I was like, oh, wow.
Okay, we should probably get moving a little bit faster through these songs because there are 13 songs on this whole album. So let's move on to "I'm Done." So, what was there? Is there anything particular you wanted to share about this song?
So I'm done. So is there anything I want to share about this? Um, again, this was just a random one that I just put together. Like when I first started it, that I randomly just put together. I think that the part that sticks out the most was actually the breakdown that you're going to hear in this later. It's like that was the part I wrote first because I was like I went through a phase of just writing so many breakdowns, and I was like, oh, okay, can I write anything around it? Because like a lot of the ways I like to write is I start with the intro first, and then I usually follow it from there on. Actually, no, sorry, I tell a lie with that, because it was the intro I wrote first, because it took there was a couple of different variations that I think I showed you actually. Um, with this, there was a bit of a shorter version to begin with, I think, where we had like a synth line sort of fading in and then sort of coming in, so with everything sort of crashing down and sort of really coming in. And then you sort of then came along and was like, right, well, actually, how about we try it this way, where we sort of elongated it a bit and, sort of like bring, then let it come in later. I was like, okay, well, let's just try it out. And that one sort of hit really a lot better, I think, actually. Listening to it, I was like, oh, yes, it hits right where I want it. That's exactly it. That's where it's got to be. No, I just wrote this one off the cuff. Like it was just one of those I just randomly put together. There was no real sort of meaning behind it at the time. Like I was just in that phase where I was just writing stuff, and I was like, okay, now let's work on the puzzle piecing, and actually sort of putting it all together and everything. And this one was a little bit more difficult because, again, it was actually like the breakdown part, trying to fit that in along with everything else. I was actually the hardest part, because I wanted it to kind of like hit well, but at the same time, sort of like really give you a good feel of this sort of sense, like, sort of part euphoria and then part anger, I guess is the right way of putting it. It was kind of like there was a bit of a contrast between two, I think. And I was trying to, I don't know if I had like a bad day at work or I can't remember. So it was something that happened, and I just wanted something just to really sort of like just drive and really give it some oomph. And then I think that's where it sort of derived from, and then that eventually got to the point of where it was, and then went, here you go, see what you think. And then that's when you kind of took it from there, and sort of became, made it become what it is now. What I'd like to know is, again, I suppose my question to you is, what were your thoughts on when you heard the draft? Like, did you know immediately like what subject you wanted to hit it with immediately?
Not immediately, but it was pretty. It was relatively soon after the lyrics came on this one, for me anyway, relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but because just like stuff going on in life that makes it very easy to write about something
Yeah,
negative.
yeah.
And especially because that's one of the things that my wife and also even DJ Tatius, they give me a little bit of guff for, is like, okay, you always write like angry, depressed, something, like, nothing is ever nice in your music, like nothing. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but like I said, it's kind of an outlet for a lot of negative emotions. But no, the thing that was interesting for me with this one was, after we got most of the lyrics done and like just from draft vocals, I needed to start working on finals. And then I got COVID. After
Oh,
avoiding that
no.
beast for a good 2.5 years straight, I finally caught
Wow.
COVID, and absolutely wiped me out. But the big thing is my voice. It took a really long time for my voice to come back, and so I attacked the final vocals on this kind of probably a couple weeks before my voice was 100%, honestly.
Sure,
And so
sure.
that's one of the things that the previous versions of this piss me off, because like I can hear, like, I actually had to change how I did some vocal processing just to make things fit right and sound right, because like there were several
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a previously released version of this that makes me angry, because I can hear in my voice like there's just not as much umph and as much power as I want to hear it, and it's
Yeah.
because I was coming fresh off of COVID. But we were I was honestly starting to feel bad. I was like, I know Bobby wants to get this thing out, but I'm like, so that's what I always remember with this song, was the fact that it came
Mm.
out as good as it did, even though I was not at 100% yet.
No, hats off to you, man. As I say, so I remember you telling me actually that when you got hit with it, it was like, oh man, I hope you're all right. And I think when you said to me, it's like, dude, I need to take some time out. It's hit me hard. I was like, dude, and I think I remember saying, it's like, don't worry about that. Just get better first. That's the important thing. And your health comes first. Like, don't strain yourself unnecessarily, because that could cause further damage down the line.
Yeah, and that's why I did take my time, so it's like I knew my voice wasn't like gonna be in danger and it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those, like, it just when you get sick, and this is just for any of you vocalists out there, you just have to know this. When you get sick, the last thing to recover is this. There's just no way around it. It always is. So you have to give yourself time, drink lots of water, warm up, do those things that you got to do to take care of it, because if you try and, go to 110%, because it's just like a car, it's just like an athlete. Like, athletes always warm up before they're going to do something. This is bodily function. There is no difference than from what an athlete. So you gotta think kind of the same way.
Yeah,
but
100%.
All right, and this is I'm Done.
Inside of me, I don't believe you've had the pleasure yet to meet you. Push, no more restraint. That's why I failed to try again. You failed to try. Yeah, every chance I'll do well, you can make it right. What guess that was and what was on your mind? You failed to try again. You failed to try. A clever trick you knew I missed, 'cause you knew me best. I'm patient, but I've had it work sadly you're dead. So let's get now the number of times that you played down. Yeah. Who's gonna clean up your next mess? I know that I don't need the stress. You cannot see the killer's flaws, so there's your personality. A waste of my time. A waste of time. Disregard. Dismiss. Your face I won't miss. I won't miss. A clever trick you knew I missed, 'cause you knew me best. I'm patient, but I've had it work sadly you're dead. These isn't making sense. No. Just gonna throw up one more defense.
absolutely love jamming to that. It is one of the favorite tracks of this. It's one of those to jam to. It's like, oh my god, yes.
Oh yeah, one of the things that I am really proud of with that song is the fact that because one thing this is just like a little pet peeve of mine is I've met a lot of vocalists over the years that
Mm-hmm.
they will tell you, and whenever you work with them that they'll like, oh no, this is the only thing that I do. I only do this one thing, and you can't and if I do
Mm-hmm.
it, if you ask me to do anything else, I'll freak out, don't know how to do it. So that was one thing that as a vocalist, it's very important to me. It's like I want to be versatile, have lots of tools at
Yeah.
my disposal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but yeah, so like for instance, the fact you hear some fry screams, you hear some talk ups to build up into some screaming, and then you've also got more like traditional singing, and then but that's something I always like to do with compositions of any sort is yet you want to re-engage your listener in like
Mm-hmm.
different ways. So that's why you never want to have the same thing for too long. And that's actually one of the things that when I'd be like, especially with this song, because I remember because we went back and forth on the arrangement on this a little bit.
We did actually. Yeah, I remember that.
Because that was one of the things that I wanted this song to stand out, and I didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
use some of the same like tricks and arrangement maneuvers that we had used before,
Mm-hmm.
so that way it could really stand out and show and really sound as awesome as it could be.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I think we've done well to get to the point that we have. Like, because like you did, as you said, like we did go back and forth quite a few times, like to really sort of get to the point where we could both say we're done. And pun
Yeah,
intended, but
yeah,
it was like I think this is probably the one that we kind of went back and forth on the most, if I remember correctly. That because as you said, you wanted this to sort of stand out as something different from everything else that we've done. So it was like, right, well, how do we differentiate that? And then that's when we sort of finally sort of came up with like different ideas, especially like at the very beginning with the intro, like because I had a different idea for that, and then you showed me the one that we've got now. I think you showed me something different to like similar to that, but a different variation of, and I was like, well, okay, well, how about we try it this way? And eventually we got to the point where we could say, right, yeah, we're happy with that one. Let's carry on with the rest of it, and then finally then got it to where we were. So I think I think we've done pretty all right there.
oh yeah. Well, and like I said, that's what it because one of the things that I'm always aware of with songs is
Mm-hmm.
not repeating myself too many times, and
Mm.
because you do want to have consistency in the sound, especially across an album, but you don't want you don't want the listener to ever feel like, oh, I've heard this before. I know what that
Yeah,
move is.
yeah, definitely, 100%.
So now let's talk about Closer to Home. This one was one of those that I think I remember asking for several sections to be doubled because I knew the melody lines that I was gonna write, especially for the chorus. I was like, I'm gonna be twice as long. I just immediately edited that when I sent it back because I was like, I'm gonna need
Yes.
that space.
Yeah, no, I
And
remember that actually. I was like, honestly, my first thought was, I was like, why do you want it doubled? But then, because I thought, okay, well, let's just go with it. And then, then when you showed me actually what you were planning on doing, it was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, let's go with it. Like, it made sense. And yeah, it was one of the, and the change that I actually liked on this was further on down the line, you've got this like really like incandescent break where it's you've got like, all this sort of heavy distorted guitars and everything, and then suddenly it just goes, and then you're just left with this sort of ethereal reverb background, and it completely different, and really different contrast to everything that was on that track, and then it just suddenly, and to have it brought back, I really thought that was a brilliant idea. And I mean, I didn't even think of anything like that because I just sort of went with the kind of like to sort of keep it. If I kept it consistent, then I knew it was a good starting point. But I didn't even think of that, and that was a really good touch, man.
yeah, that was one that because I remember thinking that I was like, it's like I want some more dynamic drops,
Yeah.
and that was yeah that one came in. But no, this is another good example of something I've shared on a couple of other videos, but I don't think I've ever told you directly is that something that is always in the back of my mind, especially with this album in particular, is that I'm always so aware of the fact that I've never, in my entire musical career, ever been anyone's first choice as a vocalist. In
Really?
things I've been involved in,
Okay.
I've always been like, background vocalist, or
Mhm.
wrote parts, but then some other singer did them, partially because I was a good guitar player, so people always wanted me to
Sure.
focus on that and do that.
Hmm.
But that was something that with this album, I really wanted to prove that like I can absolutely, I can hold my own as a lead vocalist, and
Yeah.
like I can do that. Like I know that there is something, like I've got that ability, and part of
Hmm.
it was I just never had the opportunity to really like push myself. Thank you, Tony,
Sure.
for sharing in the Spotify. Yes, we all of this music that you're hearing, you can find on any of the streaming platforms that you listen to. So please,
Hmm.
follow, like, subscribe, all that beautiful junk. I always forget to do that. But but get back to this, is that in particular towards the end of this song, is when I really like pushed myself and really like, because you built everything up to this huge moment,
Hmm.
and so I was like, all right, in order for this huge moment to land the way it's been orchestrated, and it felt really good. It's like, all right, I need to give this everything I had, and that I'm really proud of what we ended up coming up with towards the end. Is that it's so we've got these big, huge chugging guitars with these huge synths, and then this like soaring high melody line. So
Yeah.
it comes across just as epic as I was hoping it would.
Oh, dude, it completely blew me away, man. Like you say, when you showed me the final draft of what you wanted it to sound like, I remember listening to it, and then I took it down to my wife and I went, "Listen to this right now." Was like kind of some of my choice words, but there was probably
Drop
like,
whatever you're doing. Listen to this.
"Stop, drop, and roll. Watch this down." Honestly, it was just incredible, man. So I was like, yeah, gotta do it. So, oh my god, oh my god.
Yeah, basically, that is kind of that was kind of what happened. Good to see you jumping in, man. I didn't see what platform you jumped in on, so but yes, it was basically one of those moves. And the story for later on down the line, this is one of the times that I could pull off the insane vocals after the batshit crazy key change. There was another song that we have that I actually was like, I pulled it off in the demo, but I was like, I'm only ever going to be able to pull that off once. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get, 9 takes worth of this that I can layer into, 3
Mhm.
vocal stacks, because that's what most of my vocal stacks are. Is it's
Sure,
about
sure.
3 vocals or so. And I was
Mhm.
like, I'm not going to be consistent enough to hit that. Sorry. But this was one of the times I was like, nah, I got this. I got this, man. So this
And
is
that you
closer.
definitely did, man. You definitely knocked out of the park.
Thanks. All right, guys. So this is Closer to Home.
Here we go.
So much rise from that I unnoticed. How often my brain has been on replay. Been stuck, been spinning in circles, making the same loop my whole life. It's about time
Okay, yeah. Now I remember. There was several moments in that song that vocally I was like, all right, hang on for dear life, bro. Let's just go for it.
It's like, hold on.
Yeah, like for instance,
Oh.
the one that one line, I actually kind of, this is one of those few moments where I actually impressed myself, was that
Mhm,
become someone worth it, you gotta let
mhm.
the demons free, like that thing.
Yeah.
When I first tried it, I was like, I really want this sound. I think I got the thing I want in mind, and I threw it down, and I was like, holy shit, that actually worked. Like that sounded like how I wanted it to, and I was like, did I have a lot of processing? And I was like, I really thought I was gonna have to do a lot of audio engineering work to make that sound, but
Mm.
surprisingly, it's just a little more reverb and a little more delay, um, on the and a double. That's it.
Yeah.
So I was actually like very happy that I was like, yes, I can make that sound, and I don't have to work so freaking hard to make it.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. But yeah, honestly, man, it was such a fun track to write. Because with that one, I wrote it obviously a while ago, showed it to other people, figured out what can you do with it. And again, got drafts back. It was like, and again, I was just being really picky with who I wanted this to go with. And that's when I settled. It was like, nah, it's got to go to Matt. It has to. It was just one of those. Once I sort of left it for a little while, I was when it's going to him now. He's not failed me once. I know he will not fail me again, and we will just long live the maestro.
Yeah, it's no, and I thought that turned out that song he turned out even better than I thought it was going to, because
Same
it's
here,
got all
actually. Same here.
it's got all these moments and these wonderful movements that it really takes you on a journey, which that is always the mark of any good song, is that it takes you on some sort of an emotional journey.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah,
100%. And when you showed me like the different ideas, especially with that break just before the guitar solo, that actually, like, again, it blew me out of the water, because I didn't think of anything like that, because at the time I wouldn't have thought of something of that caliber.
hmm
And then you just sort of going, well, how about this instead? And it just really took me by surprise, but at the same time it was a really good surprise. It's like, yeah, we're having that in it, because I felt it just worked really well, especially with sort of breaking up the dynamic consistency, to sort of like bring it down for a little bit and then bring it back up again. I just thought it was a really good touch.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of my. It's funny. DJ Tatius will make fun of me that I'm a bit of a rule Nazi when it comes to things, because he's discussed with me at length a lot of
Mm-hmm.
how I actually think and how I process music and really go through things. And that's something that I know really, I have developed like all these little rules and habits in my head
Yeah.
of like, okay, if we've spent this much time at this dynamic level, then we need to
Mm-hmm.
move. And that's
Yeah.
why that's actually one of the reasons why like a lot of the arrangement things I suggested were things like that. Like, okay, is this a redundant movement, or
Mm-hmm.
dynamically speaking, have we done this same drop in this same pattern too many
Yeah.
times, or have we hung out too long at really really high intensity? All right, we need to bring it down. We need to do something to
Mhm.
get back up to this other moment. So that's honestly a lot of how I think through and really analyze music. But now let's
It's
move.
not a bad way to do it at all. Trust me.
So, trust me. Speaking of which, which I think is
Ooh.
one of the last ones that we wrapped up on, and it was kind of funny. So you mentioned that whole like that at the very beginning, that Phrygian sort of like ooh ah thing.
Yeah.
Basically, that's a straight up. I was listening to Calva Louise quite a bit, and I was
Okay.
and that's something that they do a lot, and I was like, oh, this would be perfect for this song, because I really love the opening riff.
Hmm.
And it's kind of funny because with this song, I was more thinking about, all right, what have we done previously that I haven't repeated much?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that way we can kind of, harken back to some other kind of concepts and ideas.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So, but I was kind of curious, what were some of your thoughts and creative process with this one?
Well, so I came. So with this one, I had a bit of help, because Originally, I actually wrote this with another BandLab guy. Goes by the name of Shadow of the Cell. I can't forget. There's got to be underscores in between each word, otherwise you can't find him. But he actually sort of gave me some pointers with it, and he sort of showed me a draft of what he came up with, and it was actually a really cool thing. I mean, he came up with like a completely different topic altogether in terms of like lyrics and stuff like that. And actually, he came up with it was a Russia-Ukraine thing. It was on that sort of subject actually that came up, and he just sort of kind of went with it. And well, I think the point that kind of stuck out for me with writing Trust Me was it was actually the riff, the intro riff at the very beginning. It's really simple stuff. I sort of kept that, and I was like, well, I kind of want again. This was one of those. I wanted it to sort of be short and straight to the point. I didn't want this one to kind of go like drag on too long, if that makes sense. In terms of like the length of the song. So I basically kind of took that riff and then was like, right, okay, well, how do I keep it in that feel but keep it short? And I was like, but then how do I also differentiate it from one another? And that's sort of when I came up with the actual like sort of verse riff. I was like, just sort of like just little things I can do to kind of keep it in the same sort of format, but at the same time, sort of differentiate it and what have you. And then just sort of just followed it on from there. And then the idea I had for the chorus was I wanted to have this real energy to it where it is sort of like at the, sort of peak of impact, if you like. Sort of like, so that's, I just came up with just a really simple thing. It's just sort of like, because a lot of the things that I had done before, like previously, prior, was I didn't make use of kind of accenting different like parts in a chorus. Like I would just I probably would have just done, which is all right in itself, but wouldn't necessarily kind of really give it a good, it wouldn't be as well as it should. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do differently? And then, that's when I sort of came up with like, just sort of random accented palm mutes, so, and and then driving it from there, and it's like, yeah, okay, this works. And then I was like, right, well, what else can I do? And then that's just, again, it was just one of those, it just pieced together actually really nicely. It didn't take me long to get the draft done. But yeah, it was one of those I've been sitting on for a little bit. And it was just kind of like collecting dust to a certain degree. So I was like, right, well, I need to do something with this because this, really turned out well, and I want to have this out. And that's when I showed it to you. I was like, well, do you want to do something with it? And you sort of took it in, listened to it, when it came up with some ideas, and then the one thing that I will say that did throw me off at first was actually taking away the first chorus and making it a clean one. Like at first it didn't make sense to me. Like, but again, it was one of those that I hadn't heard it, so I was like, what the hell does that? What the hell would that do? And then so obviously I was like, right, okay, well, I'll just write it anyway, put it in, and and then send it to you. And then it wasn't until you then send it back, and it just clicked. And again, it was like that one with Closer to Home with that break it at the bridge part. This made sense. Like when I actually heard it, I was like, yeah, okay, now I understand why you asked for it, because it was a dynamic shift, and it was just one of those. And it was a nice early dynamic shift, and then just sort of kept everything sort of nicely back, and then tied in with another later part on it. I just thought it was very clever idea. And again, it's just like, it's one of those that I did not think about it until later on, until you pointed it out, actually.
Yeah, that was this one was I honestly was thinking through it because it was this one of those songs where I was like I felt like we were sitting up here dynamically for too long.
Yep.
So I was like, all right, I was like, I'm pretty certain we need to do a drop chorus, but I was like, I don't know if Bobby's gonna be into that. I'm like, man, whatever. Well, I'm just gonna throw it at him. We'll see what we do. And
Yeah.
and yeah, and honestly, like one of the things I wanted to share a little bit with this song lyrically was
Mm-hmm.
because with some of these, you can kind of hear my worldviews clearly as you read the lyrics that I put together. Like
Mm-hmm.
this one in particular, though, is one that it's just a very positive message, and it was me intentionally trying to write positively
Mm-hmm.
because um, there's a there's a lot of times where we can all feel like we're stuck in the mess, and that there things
Mm-hmm.
never get better, especially with
Yeah.
like the media and whatnot. We get a lot of negative messages from a lot of different sources constantly,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's very easy to feel like that there is no hope. It's very easy to feel like you know
Sure.
that whatever thing you're in right now, especially like with depression, like that you can't really see the light at the end of the tunnel because you're looking straight down, and
Mm-hmm.
and so that's why like why the whole like trust me, believe you'll outlast the dark. It's that whole point of like just keep going, because I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that we don't. Grit is something that, especially in our Western societies, we don't put a big emphasis on grit anymore. That like, okay, yeah, you
Yeah.
will experience some bad things, keep going, because that's one of the things is oh, I don't, was it in this song? It might have. Yeah, yeah, it is in this song. It's like, um, pain is only temporary. A setback is only what you make it, because it's hard to fail if you refuse to quit. And
Mm-hmm.
which is actually kind of interesting because it even loops back to your story with Gear Gods of how
Mm-hmm.
you got you got your song ripped to pieces when you thought it was amazing,
Yep.
and that would have caused someone else to quit and to put down the guitar, stop writing music because, well, apparently the internet says I suck. But then you took that as like, nope, I can learn from this. I'm just gonna keep
Mm.
going, and
Yeah.
that's what brought you to actually having an album completely done and released, like this big old dream of yours. And so it's a big kind of kudos to you also at the same time.
No, thank you so much, man. And actually, I will touch more base on this, on that story, because I think it holds true actually to what you mean by, when you get to a certain point and you hit this brick wall and you think, well, what the hell am I supposed to do now? So again, to give a bit more backstory on this, so it was about, I want to say 3 years ago, I think it was. So Gear Gods, the YouTube channel, did a songwriting contest where first prize for its contest was a Rev G100 guitar amp. Like, so it was just like the amp heads, but this was like a big thing.
Yeah.
It was the first contest like for songwriting that he'd ever done, so he knew there was going to be um, what's the word? Ambitious people, should we call it? Throwing in some really wacky ideas. Um, but one of the things that, because obviously he's done a lot of songwriting himself, so he knows his criteria. And so what I did was I wrote what originally was called The Kingdom Falls. And it was, I at the time I thought it was a great track. One thing I missed, the top line, no vocals. There was no
Mm.
top line to it at all whatsoever. But at the time, I didn't think of that. So I just submitted it and think, well, it's there. If he gets to it, he gets to it. Um, and then, I was obviously watching the videos over and over to see if it would be picked up. And then it wasn't until one day there was a video that so I can't remember what the title was, but essentially it wasn't a great one. I was like, oh god! So there was some people with some bad ideas and stuff like that, things missing, and unfortunately, one of the Kingdom Falls was on that video, and yeah, it was. But and he fairly pretty much ripped it apart. Okay, fair enough. Some people did say out of that video that some saving grace, they did say it was the most cohesive track on there. But again, no top line, so there was no real sort of no real story element to it. So that's why I got ripped to pieces on it. And I literally remember I stopped playing for a good 3-4 weeks because of it, and because it was like, oh shit, what the heck, I worked so hard on it, and why is this so, why people not like it, and then it took me a little while, and I thought, well, actually, what the hell am I doing? Like, I sort of like sat down in this spot and went, what the f am I doing? Like, so I actually went, right, do you know what? Hell of it. Let's watch the video again. Let's watch that bit. I did.
Back for more.
I did, yeah. It was a tough decision to make, but I decided, you know what? I need to go back and understand why. Because at the time, it was an emotional hurt. Like, oh my God. But no, I decided, no, I'm going to watch that video again and just actually listen to what he's saying. And then that's when it really finally clicked. Like, there was no there was no vocals on it, so there was no melody or anything like that. Then nothing that really stood out. It was, at the time, it was just something just randomly put together. And that's when I then made it my mission to get completed pieces. That was my next step. Was like, right, I'm rather than just sort of putting instrumentals together, let's actually, complete it and then actually just see where we go from it. And it was actually around that time I started getting heavily involved with BandLab, because at that point it was just kind of just in the background because I could use Cakewalk from it. But
yeah, exactly.
So it wasn't until that point I decided, right, well, let's just give BandLab a shot. Let's just see what this platform can do. And then that's when I got in contact with so many people. Then I start and then eventually down the line I met DJ Tatius and yourself. So it was one of those glorifying moments. It was just like I couldn't have written it the way I wanted to, but it was one of those moments. It was a bloody proud moment when I could finally say that I found someone that I want to work with like a lot. And I'm picky with that sort of things. And I've only got a select few people on there that I will go to first and foremost. And after doing all these tracks with you, you're way up there.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, so that's why this song, trust me, holds it's that whole grit, that push through. Why that's something that both of us relate to a ton. So here we go. Here is this, and this is probably top 3 tracks for me on the album. I really like this song. So
it's a fun one, trust me.
Let's give it a spin.
Oh, come on. It won't matter when I shoot down. As long as you get off the ground. I see you, I've been you in the worst way. Bad luck is all you're stuck with. When will it change? The all-time low is gone on time. It feels like this is gonna be life. But you don't see the other side. Don't give up while you can still stand up. It's raining now, but I know it will clear up. Things are like temporary. The setback is only what you make it. It's hard to fail if you refuse to quit. Trust me, believe you'll outlast the dark. It's a small part of your story, not the ending arc. Not the ending arc. One more sway, one more myth. Nothing's happening. I can push through. There's no reason you can't trust me, believe you'll outlast the dark. It's a small part of your story, not the ending arc. Trust me, believe you'll outlast the dark. It's a small part of your story, not the ending arc. Trust me, believe you'll outlast the dark. It's a small part of your story, not the ending arc. Trust me, you'll outlast the dark. Trust me.
All right, so that is "Trust Me." That's another song that you can really hear like my emphasis, my strong emphasis, on doing a lot of different things vocally. So you can hear in that song, yeah, like the ooh ah, and then the the true like fry scream like one more, blah, and then also moving all the way into the chorus, especially the soft choruses where you got that trust me, believe, like trying to, because once again it's all about taking an emotional journey all the way through.
Mm.
All
Oh yeah,
right.
hugely, 100%, man. Like, and I think it portrayed it really well. Like, it was just an incredible journey.
Yeah, I do really like that song, but I also really like this next one, "Let It Burn." This is probably my favorite track. I think I even remember when you first sent me this track, I was
Mhm.
just oh yeah, when I
Yeah,
first
that would help.
looked at this, listened to this song,
Hmm.
I was just like, holy cow, this chorus it just so fits my wheelhouse. I'm like, and I even told you this, like my problem is that I have written too many good choruses, that like I
Hmm.
have so many good options here for
Yeah,
this chorus. I think I sent you two completed versions,
you
and I
did.
couldn't
Yeah.
make a decision, and then you eventually chose this one. um,
Hmm.
and I'm really happy with the way it came out. It's very because something I grew up on is I grew up on a lot of like emo music, so Seosin,
Hmm.
Underoath, Hawthorne
Sure.
Heights. Like I love a very like a very high emotional vocal, and
Mm.
especially with this song where this song is all about the fact that we get there's a lot of, especially with the news in the past several years, people get a really like emotionally burnt out by all the
Yeah.
things that everyone, like every social media account, people that you just talk to randomly, people at work, they have this thing that they're freaking out about, and that, oh, don't you care about this? Aren't you freaking out about this? Well, why don't you
Mm.
care? Well, aren't you kind of partially responsible for this problem? And then we get bogged down with
Hmm.
this feeling of just like, dear God, everyone says I should care about everything, and then you get to that point of, I cannot care. I'm numb, but I still aware, and so I just sit and stare and watch the world burn.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And you're kind of right actually by saying, like, you're getting bombarded from different angles for for people saying one thing, like you said, like why should I care about this, or what, what, you should be worrying about this and why aren't you, sort of thing. And when you're constantly getting it from multitude from different places, you just get to that point where you just think, well, why, I'm done with this. It's like, I don't need to listen to this all the time. It's like, No, I completely get that. It's just one of those. Is like when you get hit with it so many times, you think it just goes over your head.
Yeah, and that's why that's kind of what the overall message of the song lyrically, but this one's honestly it's just one of those like it's super drivey. Like I
Mhm.
said, the chorus was so good that I'm very happy with what we ended up with because
Oh
I
yeah.
knew I knew that this song was like this is gonna be really good as long as I just don't screw it up.
Dude, you didn't trust me. And no, this was a really fun piece to write actually as well because this is actually probably one of the oldest pieces that I've had in my library. This dates back to probably, well, it takes back 10 plus years ago. As I mentioned earlier, I'll say it again. So my wife did.
So what was the first riff that you wrote with this?
So the riff that I wrote was it was somewhere along. It was like, uh, bear, bear with me if I think it's wrong. It's like something like that. And so what I did, so this was part of my wife's college project, like 10 plus years ago. So she needed to have 4 original pieces written as part of her college degree. And she came to me and was like, look, you play guitar. Can you help me with this? I was like, yeah, no problem. I can have a go. Um, but that's when I kind of got thrown into the deep end of songwriting. So this was like my first proper go at it. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I went to my guitar tutor, Lloyd, and I said to him, look, this is the situation. I'm in a bind. Please, can you help me out? And he was like, yeah, no problem. I got you. So we spent like loads of guitar lessons, like really going over like the fundamentals of what makes a track and everything like that. And I think this was actually the first one that I actually put together with his help. And the part that stuck out the most was actually the chorus. That actually hasn't changed. And like from the beginning, it was just literally like just a simple chorus, but it was kind of like just that. It was just all power chords at that point.
Yeah.
So when I came back to this later on, I wanted to kind of like really upgrade it. So
And that's when you
the
added
first
that
thing
like crazy synth on the top.
oh yeah, that was completely new. Like that wasn't obviously it wasn't even in the original piece whatsoever. And that I wanted to give it a more better breath of life. So what I did was I took the chorus, went right, what can I do with it? So then I took the same chord progression and then just added some extra notes like some thirds, fifths, some kind of went like that. Turn up a little bit,
Yeah.
and then sort of so like, what can I do to kind of like bridge the gap, sort of bridge each chord. So sort of took that, then went like here, then added like sort of a suspended note on top of that, and then just it's like okay, the next part is like you're back here, and then just kept it going. So I just took little pieces of that chord of that progression and went right. How can I make it so that it doesn't sound the same, but but it still catches your ears?
Mm-hmm.
And that's eventually what I came up with. And when I finally got that, I was like, yes, okay, we're finally getting somewhere. And then I wanted to then focus on the verse because again, it was just a simple riff that I obviously showed a minute ago. So so I kind of went with that. And I was like, well, what can I do differently this time? Can I do anything different? And then that's when I sort of came up with just a sort of like a really, again, it was just simple, but it was different to what I did last time. And sort of adding in little flares here and there, which I thought, yeah, I think this goes well. Sort of like, no, it wasn't. Well, something similar. But part of it I liked actually was there's a little harmony part. It was like, I put sort of putting like that, and I just thought, yes, I want to put that in there.
Yeah, I love those little, like, you get a little bit high up on the neck in between dropping down to low strings. I love that contrasty sound. Like, so when I was hearing some of those things, especially like peppered into the verse, I was like, oh yes, please, thank you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it was one of those. Like, I wanted to like spice it up a little, and that's what I came up with. And then I tried to track this. Jesus Christ, this took me forever. Like especially this one up here because there's a string skip in it. So kind of like there is, yeah. So there's like so it's like you got 9th fret 12 on the A string, and then it literally skips a string onto the D, but on the 9th as well. And it was just that jump. I couldn't get it so many times, and it was another one down here on the harmony part. So there's another string skip here. So trying to get that nailed was a nightmare of my life. When I finally got it, I was like, thank God, I can leave this alone now.
Yeah, no, there's definitely I can empathize with that. There's a few songs that I've written over the years. Okay, dear Lord, hi, Luna. Apparently, my dog wants to. Do you want to be a part of this? Hi.
Hello.
But yeah, there's whenever you got like multiple string skips, or at least like string skips in weird places that you're not used to. Oh yeah, that can throw off your just patterns that you're used to playing just enough that it's like you have to like learn a slightly different muscle memory, and it'll get you. 100%,
yeah. Honestly, I was so happy when I actually finally nailed them. I was like, dude, I can just put it down now. That's done. I'm leaving that alone. If I go back to that now, that's going to cause a catastrophe in my books.
Nice. All right, well, let's play it, Let It Burn.
Let's do it.
Overloading from every point of entry. The human mind
Oh, yeah, that one is just such a drivey. There's so many great moments in that song. Like I
Yeah,
said, that might be my favorite on the album for lots of reasons.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was actually really happy with the solo that turned out as well. Like even then, like trying to be able to come up with a solo that grips as well as the rest of the song was, I thought was like a difficult thing to do. But then when I actually got it, I was like, oh yeah. Like the part I liked was the complicated part I had was there was two parts to it. There was the little run before before the solo part actually kicked in. So it was like
That's a great way to get into that solo. I
oh
love that.
definitely. I actually really liked that. And then there was this little I mean the whole thing was just great in general. I mean hold on, it's like bloody I was like, yeah.
It's a rad solo, dude.
It was great. I'm actually surprised I did not F that up. That's it too much. I'm like, wow.
I was like, shit, he's actually playing this. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of my problems. Is like after I write a lot of stuff,
Yep.
it leaves my brain like
Yeah.
almost completely. What's
Yeah,
up,
same here,
Matt?
actually.
I just wanted to say hi to you, man. But yeah, that one. That's one of the reasons why I really appreciate your soloing is because you're not writing solos to prove how good of a guitar player you are, even though you have a lot of different techniques that you're putting in there.
Yeah.
You're writing solos that fit the song emotionally, and that's always been my big thing. Is that it's part of the reason why you don't ever hear a lot of guitar solos in my music. Part of it's because I love I love really complex rhythms and stuff. So it's like it is really intricate. But the other thing is like I just there's a lot of guitar solos, especially that I grew up with, that I'm like they aren't that emotional. They don't fit the song. Like the song didn't actually need that. Whereas what you write, you're very much so it's an extension, another expression. It's a song within the song that I really like.
Oh, thank you. I mean, yeah, it's one of those like one of the things I actually struggle with is speed playing. Like I've always been trying to like really do well at that, but it's always been a real struggle for me. So I kind of for a little while kind of left that alone. Like I haven't really worked on it or anything. The one thing that I really focused on the most was my phrasing. Like really sort of like I wanted to kind of get to a point where I can go, right, what if I'm going to play something, like what's going to catch me the most? And I sort of think, right, okay, well, what can I do in my skill set that I think will be pleasing to the ear, as well as fitting what's playing. And I think that's how I approach it, really. I mean, I start off by again just noodling the hell out of it until I find a part of it that I like, and then I'll just think, right, where do I think that part's going to go? And I always start by putting it at the beginning just to see if it will go. If it does, then I start with that, and then just move it on from there forward. And that's kind of how I tend to write solos, and I do it by sort of part by part. I get to once I've nailed one part, again, I like the rest of the song structure, and like once I'm happy with one part, I'll move on to the next bit of it until I get to the end of it. Then I go, right, now let me play it all in one go. And if I can play it all in one go, roughly 5 times, that's the solo I'm going with. If I can't do it, then I go, right, well, what part of it am I struggling with? And then I sort of go, right, well, can I do something different here that allows me to kind of, interchange better and get a position on myself? And that's kind of the approach that I take with it. And it's done me well so far. So I think I'll just carry on with that for the time being.
Yeah, honestly, because that's how you have to do it, because you'll start to learn the parts of the solo that you wrote that you're like, I have this is awesome. This fits great. And then you have another part, and then you basically you're building bridges to get your hands to the right
Yeah,
position, which is
yeah.
that's what you got to do when you're writing solid solos and not just throwing crap out there. All right, and because Bobby so eloquently reminded me of the fact that I completely skipped the song, we're gonna jump over to Wandering Heart. So I'll just give a kind of quick short intro on this, and then we'll jump right in since it was still already a 2 hour long stream. Holy cow!
Woo,
Um,
wow.
but we're talking music, so it's very easy to take the time.
Oh, easily done. Easily done.
But one thing I wanted to say about this one, so originally this was actually the original version of this song was actually the very first thing I'd ever heard from you. So when
Okay.
you're like, okay, actually I want to repackage, just rearrange it for the album with you singing it, that was my biggest hurdle. Was I had so firmly in my mind what the other version was that it was
Mhm.
so hard for me to like, okay, how do I can't do that. I'm not gonna do that, but that's what was in my mind every time I heard any of these parts. So I had to really get cerebral with this one and really so that's why you'll also notice with Wandering Heart, there's a lot more production movements,
Yeah.
and a lot more of those elements because those were some of the things that I needed partially just for me to get my head out of what the song used to be. So that's actually
Yeah.
where I worked first. Is I worked production elements first, and then
Yeah.
came back around to like really nailing down the melodies. But anything you want to say really quick before we jump into Wandering Heart?
So you kind of really just touching base on what you just said, like as you said, like you've heard a previous version of this. So this has been another old piece of mine where, I worked originally with Raven and Johnny, like on a couple of tracks. One of them being called The Deceiver, which you very kindly helped us out with getting that out and everything. So thank you so much for that. But yeah, so Raven obviously did a version of it and worked really well. And then I thought, but then not, it was once it got to a point where I was like, right, this album's moving forward, then I realised I wanted this track in the album. And this is another old piece, and this one really does hold a lot of sentimental value because this one I really took the time to sort of, once I first understood the grasp of songwriting, this was actually like properly the first song I'd ever written by my own hands, like start to finish, of all the elements. And it was probably the proudest piece that I've got to my name, and now to our name, should I say? So this one really does hold a real sentimental value to me. So I'm just going to say, without further ado, let's listen to Wandering Heart.
Let's do it.
Here they come again, assumed compliance, leashes on my neck. They don't own me, so why am I listening? The dream is constant. You better see, God, you're wandering hard, dead till it's strong, and I will fight where you belong. I promise you belong. When desperate for a home, it's easy to make mistakes. When
you?
Choke on every drop of blood you stole. A parasite of me, humankind. You can't use me, you can't use me, you can't use me. Damn you for trying to use me.
Oh, yes, yes.
Man, that one just I always forget just like that one just starts off like, okay, we're getting going with the intro like da 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 da, but
Yep.
where we end up with that song is just like it's like Dragon Force. He goes,
Oh mate, honestly, I wanted to just like end it on such a powerful note, and I thought, you know what, like let's just go double time. Let's just go for it. Bring it back with a breakdown part at the end, and I just thought, yes.
yeah, that one turned out to be quite the friggin' monster.
hmm
All right. Okay, so now, so we got to that one. Now, what was the next one? Actually, I think I need to switch over to. So I think the next one
I
should be.
believe would be no empire, no domain.
Yeah, hold on a second. Where are those video files here? So it should be brand 2, and then there we go. All right, cool. We're good.
Awesome.
No, it just took me 1 second. So,
Right.
with No Empire, No Domain, this is the first time I've ever like written a political song. 'Cause normally I really don't do anything political in my lyrics, and but this one I've kept up a decent amount with the war in Ukraine and what's going on there,
Sure.
and so it was kind of interesting with this one. I didn't really know where I wanted to go lyrically.
Mhm.
And it's kind of funny because I think originally this one was called, was it Kingdom Falls was the.
This is the in fact the infamous track that I was talking about from the Gear Gods contest. This was the original one. So yes, you are correct. It was the Kingdom Falls to begin with.
Yeah, and so it's actually, so that's kind of cool, especially we talked about earlier where this is the song that got shredded on Gear Gods, and now this is actually, I have to say, it's maybe top 3 songs on the album for me. Like this grouping of songs that we just play, like these are some of my favorites. Like Wandering Heart, I originally, I honestly like had a hard time with that song. Now I
Mm.
love it because of such a wonderful progression. Let It
Yeah.
Burn, I just love that chorus, and then this song, like especially when we get into the breakdown, like that bridge and breakdown progression just
Oh
is
my
like,
god. Yes.
oh, it
Oh, it's
just
beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is kind of like beautiful in the fashion of, someone kicking through a door with and shotguns going off like that. Like it's just an explosion of a breakdown and bridge.
Honestly, it was one of those that I had no. I actually think I had a bit to drink when I wrote that. I'm not gonna lie. I think I was at a point. I was writing it, and I had a few to drink. I'll admit, and I randomly came up with that. I was like, what? And I remember listening to it the next morning, and I was like, wait a minute, did I do that? Like literally, like,
Really, it was more than one or two or three. It was like 7 to 17.
Yeah, literally, I was like, okay. So I went from how, like, I honestly had no words for it. I was like, but it was a mess though. It was an utter mess. Like, I remember.
This was one of those full-on Hemingway, like write drunk, edit sober. This was your experience of that.
Pretty much, yeah, absolutely. Like it was, I remember quite vividly. I think it was, I was trying to do some kind of dissonanted like chord thing, and I just remember like just went something like that, and I did that just, and I mashed it all together. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, honestly, I just sat there. I was like, I love it, but at the same time, this needs work. Yeah, that was my drunken to sober moment, was writing that breakdown. I was like, what on earth was I doing?
Okay. That is so funny to me because, like I said, I really love the progression of the breakdown. Like we go from, you know what? Screw it. I'm not gonna tell you. We're just gonna listen to it. Here you go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just a bad mind. Get what you want and don't consider who you take from. Don't let your problem maintain the illusion it's all for good. Even at the point of a gun, your history justify all of your bloody lies. And you crave all day that God will curse your name. No empire, no domain, another useless game, another useless game. Digging down in the dirt to bury the unfair dead. Conquest for ego and lies to hide all those you sent to die. And you crave all pain that God will curse your name. No empire, no domain, another useless game, another useless game. Black Sabbath said it the best. War pigs will be our death if we allow unchecked forces. Send the poor out to die, but they will ask why. Are you leading behind walls of corpses?
Yeah, that one's got some balls on it. Actually, I'm gonna read that. I'm really kind of proud of, especially with the lyrics for the as it builds up.
Oh yeah.
Um, just that whole there's several lines that I'm proud of in this song. Like for instance, send the poor out to die, but they will ask why are you leading
Mhm.
behind walls of corpses? Which I was like, it's like metal as fuck. And then I love the build because like that build that you created, it just really fits with this whole like sentiment of like, oh yeah, things are gonna start going wrong. Like just like the fall of Rome, the cracks start from below, and suddenly the
Mhm.
peasants are demanding your throat. Your lack of control will be the final act right before you feel the common man's wrath. I was just like, and then we get into
Oh,
that breakdown, and it's just like, just like,
honestly, that just it fitted so well with it, and honestly, it just like just yes, like it was just so good. I was
yeah,
like,
that
oh,
little like single note like on that that note when I heard you do that I was like, oh shoot, I'm gonna make this like stand out. That's why like all of a sudden the guitars are out here with bass and
mm,
everything rolling, and then I mute like several different things and lines, and then I put the guitars right here and to be like, no, like no, you need to pay attention to that like little like
yeah.
just 'cause,
And this bit, like, so that bit,
yeah.
yeah, I was like, again, that was another one I had to do so many takes to get that in because I was like, right, how am I going to get that in? It's like, fuck, see, I was like, it's hard because I
It's a
literally
hard
have to,
it's a big movement, yeah.
it is because I'm literally hitting three strings, so it's because I've got to slide it in, so and then actually get them all to ring at the same, on with each other. That was the hard part of tracking.
Oh
But
yeah.
once I got it, it was fantastic.
Yeah, that song. That's why it was another one of the favorites. And it's also kind of ironic that I ended up writing a political song.
Yeah.
Basically Putin, anti-war, which
Mm.
which is kind of ironic that originally the title of the track was "The Kingdom Falls," and in essence, it's kind of also weirdly still the same theme
Yeah,
from
yeah,
what
it
it used
is
to be.
actually in its own way.
All right, so now let's talk about the next one, second to last song, "Time Stops for None." This one was one of those songs that, as far as when you sent it to me, I was like, oh, okay, this is like we got like a more chill song on the album. That's
Mm.
cool.
Yeah.
And I definitely took a very because sometimes I will let myself think and like rip things apart a million times, but with
Mm.
this, because it just
Hmm.
everything sat back, I was like almost most of the ideas that you're hearing, like most of them are my like first thoughts, first things, just threw them
Yeah.
down,
Hmm.
and it felt really and honestly, this was a nice like kind of a palate cleanser for the album as far as like it
Yeah,
shows a
for
little bit of a
sure.
different side. But since it was something so different, like did you approach writing this one differently? Like you're like, oh yeah, I need this on the album, or kind of how did it come about?
So I wanted this one on the album because again, this holds a lot of sentimental value because this is actually another piece that was originally done for my wife's college project. So this is actually track number two that was originally done for it. So one of the things they actually had to put in on the project was they had to have caveats on each song. So for what, like for instance, one had to be a ballad style, then one had to have certain criteria, I think, in terms of the chorus having certain things to it. And then obviously one of them was like just a freestyle go for it sort of thing. Um, and this it was actually what I came up with for the ballad criteria because again I didn't have a lot of knowledge at the time of what I was really sort of listening for. So I kind of just went with the idea of okay, so it's not a heavy hitting one. It's not, it's not a driving force. It's one of those ones that it's a very more not so laid back, I guess, kind of piece, but at the same time, to give you a real sense of feel along with it. So I basically just took a simple progression. This one I actually started with the chorus of, um, which so basically kind of just sort of like just a weird feel. Well, not weird feel, but a different rhythmic feel. rather than sort of going just a simple 4 on the floor
Very
sort of,
straight, yeah.
so I sort of then came up with like, right, well, how, again, need to come up with something different. So that's when I sort of came up with the rhythmic feel difference. So like, so then it's sort of like, and then sort of like, right, okay, again, now I need to just sort of make it a bit more unique, give it some little flourishes, flares, something just to really make it stand out a bit more. Um, so then, yeah, so this was this a ballad piece that I wrote originally for the West College project, and it was another one. I was like, right, again, it holds a lot of value to me, so I wanted to put this on the album as well. And again, it went through so many different transformations before I finally ended up with what I showed you originally. Because it was at that point I was like, right, I'm happy with this. This is where I want it to be. Go for it. See what you can do. And here we are.
And here we are. Yeah, this one like I said, I didn't really think through a lot of my decisions on this. Whereas normally I'm so cerebral and I'm so like analyzing all the crap that I do.
Yeah.
This one I was like, just with how it sat and how it felt, I was like, you know what, I can just kind of let's just take a swing at this because I think that
Mm-hmm.
my first guesses with this one are gonna be right. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, that's what a lot of it is. I didn't do a lot of rewrites on this one. It was mostly like I said, my first guesses on everything, and you can kind of see how with once again you can kind of see some of my perspectives on life with this being whole I'm starting to get I'm in my 30s now. I have a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of life behind me now
Yeah.
that I have some different reflections that I used to
Mm-hmm.
um, and and it wasn't meant to be like bitter bitter old man sort of thing, but it was more of just like just kind of talking about how your mind, your views, and everything sorts of shift as you get older, and it's not really a big jarring. So like, oh my goodness, it's more of just like when you actually think back and analyze like who I was previously, it's like, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I am different. That is something I used to worry about, and now it's just something that I did, and so yeah, so it's not a very like like I said, bitter sort of thing. It's more of just it's more of of a song about reflection of how
Yeah.
who you are, how you view the world shifts over time.
Yeah, definitely. And sort of looking back at sort of all your past decisions and everything like that, it's kind of a nice, almost a way of saying, looking at it, thinking, okay, so that's what I've done before, and it's led me to this. Whereas, some people, like myself included, I've done this before, where I've gone, have I done something different? Have I done something differently here? Would that have affected the outcome at a certain point, sort of thing? It was kind of like a massive sort of cog cycles like of what ifs and everything. But I think it's sort of like you've got to look at it as the point of, well, it's already happened. This is where we are. This is how we have become as people, and we should definitely be absolutely grateful for what we've done, what we've achieved, and what life experiences we've seen. Because without those, we wouldn't be the people we are right now. And I think that's sort of a really sort of heavy one to take away with, because I think without having those experiences, you're not really going to sort of know what to do in life, unless you sort of come across something that's like again with the story of the Gear Gods contest. Like that was another moment of shift where I needed to reevaluate, and had I not done what I did and just went ego mode and went just submitted it without vocals, I wouldn't be where I am now for certain. So that I have thankful for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a so it's a good song. It is the only song on the album that's a little bit more on the ballady side. So here we go. Time stops for none.
Here we go.
Reflecting on my life, chronologically, I began to understand what the elders tried to explain to me. It happens for a reason, so don't sweat the
Time stops for none. Well, oh yeah, no, this is always something fun. I probably should mention. This is only the second time ever that me and Bobby have talked directly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's actually correct. This is actually the second time in our lifetime we've actually spoken in real time together in life. Like before, it was all BandLab messages, WhatsApp messages, and voice notes on WhatsApp. Never actually. It literally dawned on me like the other week. I was like, do you know what? I've actually just realised this that we've never actually spoken properly before until now.
Yeah, okay, I have to confess this. This is something that's very, very funny, but when your first interview came out with Angified, one of the things I was just so excited to see was like, I wonder what he talks like. Like, because like we didn't talk at all, but we'd worked together on so much stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was actually a really random thing that it was kind of fun to listen to your album, listen to your interview for the first time. So I was like, oh, I get to know this guy that I've been working with for the past like
Yeah,
6 months.
I know. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it is kind of funny,
Oh, it
but
was. Yeah, no, thinking of it, actually, that is actually kind of hilarious because, as I say, like I think I had this very similar sort of thing, and then I watched your interview. I was like, ah, okay. So yeah, he talks like that too. It's like great. We can finally put the question mark to rest.
yeah, I know, especially when because that's always one of the interesting things that I never set. I'd always that was one of the things that I saw about BandLab. It was like, holy cow, like the ability to collaborate with this tool is just
Yeah.
makes it so much easier because I was taught audio engineering right when basically tape was pretty much done in a novelty and everyone had moved over into digital,
Mm-hmm.
and so but it was still there was still so much still all production was really handled
Yeah.
individually, like
Mm-hmm.
everybody getting into a room writing songs
Yeah.
together, that you had your producer that invited in the studio that
Yeah.
you work on these songs together and collaborate on them in person. So but
Mm-hmm.
I that was the thing I saw with BandLab was like, oh, there's this possibility that you can really work with someone anywhere. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that honestly has made I really appreciate BandLab. It's why I'm here, even though I've got my own musical connections and friends and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot, and I've done some professional stuff. I
Yeah.
still spend a lot of time here because as far as just it's the easiest way to make a community of musicians and to build that
Yes.
around you because
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to do that in person. Because you're kind of feeling everyone's vibe. You oftentimes can't find the people that want to do the same genre as you.
Yep.
So you have to make a lot of exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like for instance, like because I know like guys like Pat, Father Pat McGroin, Dr. Snave, Jason, all of them, like especially a lot of the old school metal guys. We
Yeah.
remember that, like just trying to find the right people to work with that wanted to do the same thing and also had the skills to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
um, is that yeah, exactly, guys, like it makes it so much easier to collaborate on here and find the people that do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah, 100%, 100% with that. Like, even I feel the same way on that because, again, like when I came off of my hiatus from the contest situation and really started, diving into the world of BandLab, you know, when I finally started putting stuff on there, and people then started, sort of noticing me as myself, sort of thing, and then people, wanted to start working with me, and I wanted to work with other people it became so easy to do that. All you have to do is just like put an idea out and be like, do you want someone want to work on this? And someone does. And that's kind of the beauty of it. And I think it certainly helps with, again, being able to communicate with a lot of people around the world. I think BandLab have done a bloody good thing here, like with this, and I hope it continues to carry on because I think without it, I think we would have. It would certainly make communication with people around the world a little bit more difficult, in terms of the fact, especially with sharing music ideas, because this is actually a really easy way of doing it.
Yeah, it really is, especially when you compare it to some other platforms and some things.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, that's why I'm just been happy that this has worked so well.
Yeah.
So now the last song that we have on the album is the title track of the album, "When Worlds Collide." I know Mizak, he went and listened to the album. He mentioned that this is his favorite song on the album. So
Really?
curious, what were some of the things you wanted to share about this song?
So this one, it's another oldish piece of mine. So I had this in the pipeline for about a good 5 6 years, I believe, off the top of my head. Um, this one, when I wrote it, I had this was no, sorry, this was about 3 years old actually, and the reason why I say it's 3 years old because this actually came around when COVID happened. So when me and my wife were, in our apartment before we sort of got to our house, I obviously had a little really basic setup where I was writing music on an iPad, and I had everything hooked up to it, and I've tracked all my guitars that way. I came up with When Worlds Collide about 3 years ago, I think. To this point, it would have been about January, because I had this sort of thought where people were dying from this, and what have you, and people were suffering big time. So this was kind of what me wanting to sort of put a message to say, you're not alone. There's support. We've got you. Reach out to us, sort of thing. I wanted this to kind of be my first sort of instant thought was, or there are people in the world that don't necessarily have the capacity to be able to reach out to people with certain conditions in play. So it, you know, people that are so far isolated that they have got no one to talk to. So it's like, how can they reach out to people? And if they need help, they cry out for help as much as they can, and they're not heard. So I kind of wrote it with the original title track called "Save the Voiceless," and to kind of sort of say, there are people out there that need our help. Let's go and help them, sort of thing. Um, so that's kind of that how that came about. Um, and kind of say the bit that kind of stuck out writing this, like the actual track itself, was the intro part, because that actually became the chorus throughout. It's just like a real simple, so like difference, obviously wrong tuning guitar, but it was just like kind of just something like that, and I just like, so I kind of just sort of took that. I was like, no, I want that. That's brilliant. So that basically became the intro and the choruses, because I just thought it just kind of just sort of gave it that energy that it wanted. So that's kind of where I stuck with it. That's pretty much what I had. What were your kind of thoughts like when you actually sort of heard it, and what were your sort of first initial thoughts and ideas for coming up with the words
Yeah,
for the words Clyde?
this one honestly was one of the toughest for me to write. I don't know
Okay.
why. I just like I battled with this one and did a lot of rewriting. Like,
Mm,
and it took a lot for me to get it to a place where I was actually really happy with it. Um, and that's actually one of the reasons why it might sound kind of funny, but that's actually the reason why I chose to chase after the title, because I was like, I know we don't have a title track. I know
hmm.
we hadn't even discussed it, that was like a requirement or something, because like people
Sure,
have named
sure.
albums other things without
Hmm.
having a song named it. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go after that, because that at least narrows my options, which is something that's I find is if I'm having problems writing, I will
Hmm.
narrow my options so that way I have to stay more focused,
Okay.
and so that way I don't go chasing really random and weird ideas.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of why I went at it that way. And then once again, as you can kind of see, like when I have trouble, especially writing a chorus, you'll hear me do a lot of call and response stuff, because that way I can
Hmm.
get the repetition stuff that I like in a chorus. I want to have some repeated themes,
Yeah.
because that's where that's where you're going to stick in your listener's head, and whether you're going to
Hmm.
survive or die when it comes to like
Yeah, of
people
course.
remembering the song and liking it.
Mm,
So that's why I went with When Worlds Collide. You know, we're going with that. Uh,
okay.
and but yeah, I reworked the lyrics a lot. I reworked a lot of the melodies.
Hmm.
Uh, that was yeah. So this one was one of the ones that I had to fight through to get it to get
Okay.
it to a point where I felt good about it.
Oh, brilliant. Well, no, honestly, man, you've done a flipping stellar job as you know, as you've done with everything else. So I think it's a fair point to say, without further ado, shall we take a listen?
We'll take a listen. Here we go.
Let's do it.
Water down, cut the pill to swallow. Hear that sound, echoes of chest that's hollow. These convictions lack contrition, cause they're filled with contradiction. Should've spent what I got down. When worlds collide, we're forced to see eye to eye. We try to be at ease when it's not easy to miss another defiant cross out the mission. Back up my soul and distract from what's inside. Pressure you with persistent precision. Object your view without inspection. We can see eye to eye if we were more than minds. That's why we were taught. And trauma run is not where we have to resort. When worlds collide, we're forced to see eye to eye. We try to be at ease when it's not easy to miss another defiant close out the mission. When worlds collide, we're forced to see eye to eye. We try to be at ease when it's not easy. Miss another defiant close out the mission.
So that is the album. The part that I was most proud of was verse 2. I really like the treasure you.
That
Like
that really hit me in the feels. Actually, not gonna lie.
Yeah, and also I like that little because that's that move I don't do very often without inspection, like that throw up with a little bit of gravel, like that's almost like a
Mm.
like an '80s hair metal sort of move, and I
Yeah,
never do that, but that fit really well there, and I kind of did it on impulse, and I was like, hey, yeah, why not? We'll leave it in.
that works absolutely perfect. Oh, dude, I've just got to quickly point this out.
Yeah.
So one of my friends who actually I first got into guitar with, I mentioned at the beginning, Ashley, or I call him Ash. He's actually just put on YouTube. These vocals are giving me a semi. I was
Yes,
like, oh my
perfect.
god! I was like, oh, dude, flipping wow, mate.
I will take all of the compliments. Because like I said, I'm like that's one of the things with this album that was really important to me was I wanted to prove, bar none, to myself and also to anyone else that's like no,
Mm,
I can be a lead singer because and that was something that was so different for me coming onto the lab. Like a
yeah.
lot of people have hit me up as a singer.
Hmm.
Which was just so curious to me because previously I was so much guitar guy and then
Hmm.
audio engineering mix guy and production and
Yeah. Yeah.
songwriter that like the singer skill set was something that not very many people asked me about. Now a lot of people
Sure.
wanted me in that position, and that's been
Hmm.
one of the fun things. What was so cool with this album is like just really pushing myself, having this situation where you're like, all right, we got you're like 13 songs. Which, by the way, I was like at first I was like when you said that I was like, dear God, don't add any more. I'm like, this is a lot.
Oh,
But it
wait,
was really good because then it forced me to really use my whole range. Because like for instance, time stops for none. I'm singing in a much different part of my voice.
mhm.
Reflecting on my life, which is a little
Yeah,
bit more in the
absolutely.
back of the
Where
throat.
you're using that lower register sort of thing.
Exactly, and then let it burn. I cannot care, like way
Hmm.
up there, and then like Apocalypse and Duality and Reality, where there's a lot of gravel in a lot of places. So
Hmm.
it's been a ton of fun to work on this with you because it's forced me to grow as a musician and as a vocalist, which has been really cool. So thank you.
No, anytime, man. And I've got to give you a massive thank you as well because truly, like with had you sort of not really come along, like I think I mentioned before in my second interview with Angie that I think I'd still be sitting on a lot of these pieces to this day now, and they wouldn't have gone anywhere. And I probably would have been stuck in this sort of loop where I'd be like, sort of chasing that sort of thing where I'd be maybe hitting up a different couple of people, or I try and do it myself and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think you sort of gave me that sort of point to really focus on like actual certain elements that I was missing, and that especially with sort of like trying different ideas. Like with that chorus bit in "Trust Me" at the beginning.
Yeah.
Again, I wouldn't have thought of that. And before I probably would have just stuck to my gun, but like, nah, I'm not going to try that. But you know, where you've obviously given so much time to work on this with me, I thought, do you know what? Um, let's just try it out because what the worst thing that's going to happen is we both go, actually, it doesn't work, but at least we've tried it. And I think that was kind of a moving point for me as well, is actually allowing myself to try different ideas on the fly as well, because because you don't know what's going to work unless you don't try it. So you really helped me out with that as well. So for that, I've got to give you a massive thank you, and just for giving your absolute lyrical genius as well for bringing everything to life. It's an absolute honor, man. So thank you so much, dude.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been honestly a ton of fun, and I'm really
Mm,
happy to finally have these songs out there because that was something that Band Lab really encourages, just pump out stuff, just get content out, which for me, like I understand there's a place for that, but for me, I'm always like because I've done this professionally, I have that in
mm,
my mind, and I'm very like, does this compete with a $10,000 record? That's always in
mm,
my mind. because
Mhm.
even though, and that's the thing I'm really proud of what we've accomplished is like what's your setup? You know, Scarlett 2i2 and Cakewalk, and then some headphones and some amp sims, right?
Similar, yes. I'll kind of walk you through what I've got. So I start off with an Audient ID4 Mark II.
Even better, nice.
So I got that. I picked that up for £100 or what, £110 or probably about $130. Then I'm running through a pair of Adam Audio T7Vs. So
Oh, I've got some serious monitor envy right now. Then those are killer. Ooh.
Oh mate, they sound amazing, and they've been an absolute staple. And if if I've got to work quietly, then I've got my set of headphones right here. So I've just got a pair of Audio Technica HTX 50s, I think they are. So if I need to use something like that, perfect, I'll go with that. And then I'm pretty much running a massive TV setup right here. So I've just got a TV stuck to the wall, and then I've got my laptop down here. So that's pretty much where I kind of gone with everything. And yeah, like in terms of amp sims that I use for my guitar tones, I have to thank Audio Assault for that, because I've obviously gone and tested a load of different amps, amp sims and everything over time. And it was actually because, again, COVID, during the first lockdown that we all had, that Audio Assault came into the picture, and they, sort of released a sort of, I say, early beta of 2 different amps for a grand total of $5 at the time, literally. And it was
Yeah.
two full working amp sims, and I tested them both out. They were just absolutely phenomenal. So I just, that's kind of what I stuck with. And then they obviously released more and more. So I kind of have every single amp of theirs now on their library. But there are a couple that I stuck with particularly. The one major one is what they call the Crown, where I think it was based off a Messer Triple Crown.
Ooh.
I think it was. But that gave me such an amazing rhythm tone to start with, and it really gave me such a lovely lead tone as well. So that pretty much is in most of the album, maybe bar a couple of differences here and there, where I've used like maybe the Sigma or the RVXX. But no, like Audio Assault, I think are really up there with the likes of Neural DSP, Aurora DSP, ML Sound Lab, and stuff like that. And they actually don't cost as much as some of the others do. It may be worth checking out. But yeah, I mean, I've gone with them because I've tried and true with them, and they've not let me down at all.
No, that is one thing that the reason why I wanted to ask you that, and to kind of make put a bit of a point on it before we kind of wrap things up, is the album sounds good. It's like for instance, I've got I've had several people compliment me on it, and and whatnot. And the thing that I want to stress to everyone, especially on BandLab, is my gear. You just heard Bobby's gear. My gear is not actually. I think my gear would technically be considered worse. So I've got a Scarlett 2i2, so really really basic. And then my monitors. The reason why I said I have a studio monitor envy is I'm using Behringers. Behringer Studios studio monitors with a sub. They are about as cheap as you can possibly go with studio monitors. And then, but that's just one of the things I know about Behringer. And this one is particular. These ones were actually designed by the guy who actually developed KRK. So he left KRK, huge monitor manufacturer. He was the original designer and the guy that got he designed these monitors with Behringer. Behringer, one of the things that they're good at is that they're excellent at manufacturing, but they're shit at design. So that's why these are actually, even though they're Behringers, they're pretty dang good. But still, dirt cheap. And then the plugins that I'm using, there's only really a couple that are truly expensive, but everything else I bought in a Waves bundle that was $500 10 years ago. And so
Decent.
and then as far as like my mics, like there's nothing like I don't have a Neumann, you know, U87 that costs like 2 or 3 grand. I've got
Mm.
a Sennheiser MK4. That's a
Hmm.
$500 microphone that when it was new and they already stopped making it,
Yep.
and then a SMB SM7B. So that way it's just two mics, both of them under $500.
Mm.
My entire setup is under $1,000, and
Yeah.
we have ended up with a record that competes with a lot of independent, you know, or small label releases.
Mm.
And you can, and that's one of the things that I'm like really proud of, and that's one of the things that I wanted to touch base on is the reason something that you mentioned is that, oh, you know, you helped me with all these things I was missing. That was actually something intentional. I don't share this very often about it, but I will actively look around BandLab for people just like yourself that have all this talent, but you're only
Mm.
missing like a couple pieces, and then I'll be
Yep.
like, no, you. I will because I can hear the raw talent. I can hear the potential, and I'm like, no, 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 just give me a few minutes. Like we'll make this thing. And
Yep.
that's exactly what's happened is that we've got a killer battery of songs that are
Hmm.
awesome and it's really like and as you know very well they're really not that much different than your original ideas like the soul of the song is still very much so the same we just you know cleaned it up a little bit
Yeah.
rearranged tweaked a couple of things and that's how good it can be and that's something that I love about BandLab and love about the
Yeah.
collaboration is that I can find people just like yourself that
Hmm.
have all this talent and potential, only missing a couple things, and then and that's fun because like I can use some of my old, you know, production know-how and some of my old
Yeah.
professional skill sets to be like, no, let me show you how good this person actually is, and it's really fun.
Yay.
All right, so what I got one final question for you before we end the stream. If you
Go
had to
for it.
choose your favorite song on the album, which one would it be?
It would have to be Wandering Heart. And
Oh, really? All right.
I'm going to go with that one because, again, as I mentioned previously, it was the first song that I wrote like properly with no guidance or anything like that, and it was the first one I could say I truly finished on my own, and I think that's why it holds a lot of sentimental value. So for me, it would have to be Wandering Heart, hands down.
See, for me,
What would yours
I
be? Now this is what would your like? What is your song of the album?
I yeah, I honestly bounce back and forth between Trust Me and Let It Burn. Those two,
Hmm.
like I'm gonna say right now, as far as overall the song, I think the song Trust Me as overall is a little stronger, but I
Hmm.
think the chorus of Let It Burn is just so, actually no, I'm just gonna say Let It Burn. That's
Yeah,
I'm gonna
fair enough. Fair enough.
it's like picking children. It really is, especially when it comes to the favorites, because like I said, like Wandering Heart is a really good song,
Yeah.
and but you know, but we got a lot of them on here, like Apocalypse, you know, like
Hmm.
Duality and Reality. There's a lot of like really good songs that connect.
Yeah.
But all right, Bobby, any final words for everybody? Any last things you want to say on the album before we close out the stream?
I think really all I want to say is for anyone who's listened to it already, thank you so much. Like it really means a lot for to check out what we have been working on for this past year. And for some people that will know, I have had this idea for a long time coming, and to finally say it's put into motion and it's finally out there, I can finally rest in peace. Like, oh my god, yes. But let's make another one soon, yeah.
Let's make another one soon. Yeah, no big deal. Just really quick, just pop out another one. No, no, we'll definitely do another one of these days.
Nice, nice. Have you got any final words to say before we close out the show?
Um, nothing. I guess I'd say first off, I'm really proud of the work that we did. It is really great. It's a really good collection of songs. I really think we put our best foot forward. Thanks for And honestly, thanks for giving me the opportunity because, like I said, I've previously never been anyone's first choice for a vocalist, and so the fact that we did a whole album like this, and so I can kind of finally say and show, like, yeah, I've been part of other albums before, but this one's like, this one is the me as the vocalist, first
Yeah.
and foremost, which has been really
Hmm.
fun to do and really cool, and so I actually have, a piece of art that says, yeah, like I could do this because one of the things I always think about as a vocalist, especially singing high, as I age, that's going to go away. That's a fact.
Hmm.
And so the
Hmm.
fact that now I've got something printed, made, done
Yeah.
that shows,
100%.
and
100%.
so that I'm really excited about. And then lastly, just for for the band lab folks, like if you think that you cannot get a really good sound, a really good album just because of your gear limitations, this album is kind of also my thing to prove. Like, hey, you don't need you know, $10,000 worth of gear. You don't need a studio. You don't need to hire a producer. You don't need to hire a mixing engineer. You don't even need a freaking label. You can put out great art on your own.
Hmm. And also, and I think I'm just going to quickly touch base on as well, is don't be afraid to ask for assistance as well, because you can get to a certain point on your own, which it's a feat in itself. But I think at the same time, like if you're struggling with sort of writing something, reach out to someone, because
Yeah.
you'll probably find that someone will want to come over and help you out, and you could then end up writing such an amazing piece you wouldn't even have thought of, and if had you tried it on your own. So my other advice is don't be afraid to reach out to someone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like work with the people that you know, your friends, the people that you hang, people that you like their music. Like be like, hey, and that's
Mm,
why I oftentimes tell people like I'm always up to listen to other people's music and critique it and give some feedback because
mm.
those are some of the things that helps people get to that next level so they can make the art they want to make.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's we're gonna call this thing. And once again, Tony, Angie, guys, thank you so much for all your help. Father Pat, Doctor Snave, Mr. Cemetery, all y'all that have come through. Thank you so much for being here. Ellie, my mom stopped in on the stream on one of the channels. It's been fun to see everyone. And once again, thank you so much for being a part of the album.
Honestly, yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, and peace out. And much love to everyone.